Chapter 954. Lich Andy was transported to the Reed Tower in Reed City. In order to study the teleportation circle, Qi used Earth Elemental embodiment, which she had yet to master perfectly, to create a tall stone tower. She then asked the construction team to decorate the interior of the tower into a magnificent mage tower that was hundreds of meters tall. She named it the Reed Tower. At this moment, in a closed laboratory in the Reed Tower, List was watching Qi set up a magic circle. At the center of the magic circle was the tall Lich Andy, who was tightly bound by orichalcum chains. Right now, he could only be considered a humanoid creature. His body was covered by a special metal armor that had completely fused with his body and soul. According to the information provided by the Sapphire Grand Duke, Andy used a mysterious armor called Scar of Fear to fuse with the soul of a dragon and transform into a lich. The Scar of Fear had completely fused with Andy's body and changed its nature. It was impossible to know what it was made of. However, List speculated that the raw material should be related to dragons. After all, the world's top materials were dragon parts. Among the 4 pieces of equipment he found in the statue, 3 of them were made of dragon materials. Moreover, to perfectly fuse with the soul of a dragon, dragon materials were obviously the most suitable armor. Qi, do you think it'll be easier to remove the soul if we remove the Scar of Fear from his body first? I'm not sure yet, but from Qi's observation, the Scar of Fear has already become the Lich's body carrier. As time goes by, his body is gradually fusing with the Scar of Fear. I'm afraid that he'll become a real Lich soon. A real Lich? Does that mean he's not a Lich yet? A semi-finished product. Qi gave a simple evaluation. The workmanship is rough, and the transformation process should be flawed. According to the legends that Qi read in the magic books, the ancient Lich was also called the Lich King. It was developed by magic shooters. It can't be so fragile. She condensed a ring of water and wrapped it around Andy's arm. She squeezed it slightly, and the armor was immediately deformed. Look, brother. It's really fragile. List nodded. Yes, it is. Lying in the magic circle and unable to move, the blue flames in Andy's eyes trembled violently. Unable to bear it any longer, he said in a low, hoarse voice, "Are you the dragon knight and magic shooter that Andrew mentioned?" "That's right." Lich Andy stared at List's face and asked with a trembling voice, "Are you the one who stole my grandson Andre's orichalcum dragon?" List smiled and replied with a slightly teasing tone, "Dragons are arrogant by nature. They will only acknowledge the most outstanding human beings. Your grandson probably isn't good enough. He didn't gain anything from the Copper Mountain Dragon for a few years, but I only went for a day, and the Copper Mountain Dragon willingly became my mount." After hearing his words, Lich Andy seemed to want to say something, but he didn't say anything in the end. Instead, he stiffly changed the topic. "This high mage isn't human, right? A spirit of the sea. A siren? It's actually a siren high mage. Did Andrew ask Sir High Mage for help to research a way to cure the Sapphire Dragon? Healing the Sapphire Dragon is just a side project. We want to study more about the soul, so Lich Andy, I hope you can cooperate with us. The sooner you get the results, the less pain you'll have to suffer. Perhaps when I send you to the Banished Land, you'll still be able to see your grandson. I'm an immortal Lich. There is no such thing as immortal. If there was, where did the ancient Liches go? Moreover, you aren't a qualified product." List didn't have anything to do today, so he had time to chat with Andy. He wanted to see if he could loosen the other side's mood and make him take the initiative to cooperate with the research. After a short moment, Lich Andy was in the mood to chat again. "You want to research liches, how about we also make a deal? Let's hear it. I'll take the initiative to cooperate with the research and rely on my dragon soul to make the Sapphire Dragon your dragon. I'll destroy the Sapphire family and give you all the wealth, but I only want you to guarantee Andre's freedom to leave the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. I'd like to agree and let you cooperate with the research, but my integrity doesn't allow me to deceive others. The Sapphire Grand Duke is a decisive person, he won't leave Andre alive to torture him because of hatred. In fact, he will only send Andre to the banished land early. That's true. I know Andre's character very well. Then I only need you to guarantee the destruction of the Sapphire family. How about it? Liszt still wanted to talk a little more with Lich Andy. Achi, who was immersed in her research, suddenly said, "Brother, Achi has discovered the secret of the Lich. It seems that the dragon soul is easy to separate, and the structure of his body isn't difficult to grasp. Because it's a semi-finished product, a lot of the design ideas are exposed on his body." Oh, so easy? Sapphire has provided a lot of information, plus Achi has recently collected a batch of information about souls. It's not difficult to see the secret of a semi-finished Lich. If nothing goes wrong, as long as there are suitable materials, Achi can also mass-produce this kind of semi-finished Lich. Impossible! Lich Andy exclaimed in a trembling voice. Achi's words ruthlessly shattered Andy's hope of getting lucky. He's a knight transformed into a Lich. His spiritual power is insufficient, and there are many barriers in the fusion with the dragon soul. It's not accurate to say that he's a semi-finished product. It should be an inferior semi-finished product. Mages are the best candidates to transform into liches. Without any bargaining value, Lich Andy was destined to be a lab rat. Liszt did not let Achi immediately take the glass dragon soul. He was not ready to heal the sapphire dragon so quickly. Perhaps it was hypocritical, but as the future king of the Fire Kingdom, from a political point of view, a dead Grand Duke Andrew was more in line with his interests. The successor Anthony would be easier to control, and once Grand Duke Andrew died, the identity of the followers of the Tulip family would also become a thing of the past. Without the moral constraints of the identity of a former follower, he could make arrangements for the Sapphire family without any constraints. After all, I've become a member of this world's politicians, and like most nobles, I only see benefits. Liszt rarely looked at himself under the lazy afternoon sun. But this feeling did not last long. In the letter, Paris reported that the Phoenix Forest had attracted a flock of red-feathered birds in World of Warcraft. It seemed that it was not an ordinary low-level World of Warcraft. They occupied the Phoenix Forest and even had several conflicts with the Flame Drakes. Goldie, Little Red, and Little Purple, the three gradually maturing Flame Drakes, did not take advantage of this group of red-feathered birds in World of Warcraft. There was even one time when Little Purple fought a red bird alone, and it only ended in a draw. The combat power of these three birds is already at the level of advanced World of Warcraft. Doesn't that mean that these red-feathered birds in World of Warcraft are all at the level of advanced World of Warcraft? Chapter 955. The Phoenix Parasol Forest was still composed of small saplings and was not lush and verdant, but under the influence of the worm stalk, each tree was full of vigor. The red-feathered birds that were attracted were the size of a calf, but their wingspans were only about 5 meters. They were fat and bloated, looking like some kind of large sparrow. Liszt found from the invisible dragon's crystal-white trajectory that their magic power was at the advanced World of Warcraft level, and there were about 100 of these birds. They shuttled back and forth between the Phoenix Parasol tree saplings in groups. Fortunately, they did not destroy the saplings, only occasionally breaking a few while playing. There was no record of similar bird-type magical beasts in the Encyclopedia of Magical Beasts revised by Achi, so Liszt temporarily named them as cardinals. Your Highness, these birds have been here for a while, and our serfs dare not plant trees. These birds will attack the serfs when they see them. Goldie, Little Red, and Little Purple are also not their match, said Paris. I will teach these cardinals a lesson. In my territory, they are my personal property, and I will not allow them to be so presumptuous. However, Liszt did not immediately subdue this flock of cardinals. The reason was the smoke mission. The previous mission required him to plant Phoenix Parasol trees to attract birds, but with the arrival of these cardinals, the smoke mission did not change and was still in an incomplete state. In other words, the number of birds might not be up to standard. It was likely that there would be more fire-attributed birds coming. Liszt had already figured out the pattern of the smoke mission, so he was not in a hurry and let Paris restrain the night and serfs here first. Liszt went to the distant crater of Mount Doomsday to meet Leo for training, and he brought Infant, the Phoenix Parasol Tree Great Elf, with him. Infant, who held the fire dragon scale all day, was in a good mood recently, but there were still no signs of evolving into a dragon elf. Of course, it did not fail, and it was still full of love for Leo. Ethan has graduated from his training, and now I have to do my best to graduate Leo's training as well. Otherwise, I will never be able to control this fire dragon. He treated Fire Dragon Leo as a combat partner, and he hoped that Leo could leave a soul imprint on him as soon as possible so that he could develop the armor form. A handsome set of flame armor was Liszt's long-awaited dream. The Bone Dragon armor was very domineering, but its aura was dark and strange, which was somewhat in conflict with his sunny personality. Roar! Leo asked for red cologne every time they met. Its body grew even bigger. More than a dozen active volcanoes in the endless volcano cluster were fully absorbed by it, and a few of them were almost extinguished. The remaining ones also looked like they were going to hibernate. For this, Leo had to go deeper into the magma to look for the Volcano Supreme Demon. But through the heart and soul connection, Liszt noticed that the deeper he went into the magma, the fewer Volcano Supreme Demons there were. In Leo's memory, the magma there lacked magic power, and it couldn't dive deeper even in its magic form. Eat, eat, eat. It's so hard to feed you. Liszt reluctantly took out a bottle of red dragon water and stuffed it into Leo's big mouth. Among all the dragons, Leo was the most dependent on and needed magic potions. Although the other dragons couldn't live without magic potions, they only needed to maintain the necessary supply of magic power. They didn't need magic power to promote their growth. Magic power was more like 3 meals a day. After entering the dragon's body, it was digested and finally turned into special dragon magic power to infect and produce mineral resources. The invisible dragon bard was even more special. Its space gems were rarely produced and had to be condensed by supreme demons. Its ordinary dragon magic power couldn't produce minerals. It was mainly used to travel through space and resonate with the physical boundary and the world outside of it. Leo was the only one who could eat as many magic potions as he could. He didn't produce anything and just kept growing. I have to communicate with the Red and White Rose family as soon as possible and ask them to send me a batch of red cologne. But this isn't a long-term plan. After all, the Iron and Steel Ridge royal family is among them. The Platinum family won't let the red cologne flow to me. It's best if I can find new volcanoes. There were no new volcanoes in the Flame Archipelago. Although there were volcanoes on the other islands, there was no exposed magma. Unless the volcanoes erupted, it was hard to see magma even if they found an active volcano. He cultivated until the sky turned dark. Just as Liszt returned to the Phoenix Parasol Forest, Paris quickly reported, "Your Highness, after you left, another group of red sparrows arrived. Moreover, there are actually 5 flame dragon birds among them. They are the same type of dragon birds as Goldie, Little Red, and Little Purple." What? Liszt was shocked. Flame dragon birds were mounts that he had always wanted to capture and tame. Unfortunately, there were many legends about phoenixes, but there were almost none that had actually been discovered. He never thought that planting a parasol tree would actually attract golden phoenixes. He quickly cast crystal white orbit and sized up the Phoenix Parasol Forest. Soon, he discovered that among the red magic power, there were 5 more brightly colored magic power. They had already entered the high magic level. It was indeed a flame dragon bird. 4 large flame dragon birds, in pairs, and 1 small flame dragon bird is alone. His eyes lit up. Capture, I must capture them. Let them breed with Goldie, Little Red, and Little Purple, and provide an endless supply of flame dragon bird mounts for my guard orders of chivalry. Of course, capturing didn't have to be violent. With Ancient, a great elf who was close to flame dragon birds and understood bird language, he might be able to take a shortcut. Moreover, there was also a fire dragon that represented the extreme power of flames. Taming a flame dragon bird would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. Thinking of this, he summoned the smoke mission. This time, the mission had changed. Mission completed. Reward, a flock of red sparrows. In a flash, new serpentines condensed. Mission, the appearance of the red sparrows indicates that the Phoenix parasol forest is attractive to fire-type birds. However, there are flame dragon birds mixed in the flock of red sparrows. The relationship between the flock of birds is worth investigating. However, Leo seems to have discovered something. Why not check it out? Reward, mysterious creature. After reading the content of the mission, List unconsciously frowned. This mission was incoherent. It was clearly two completely unrelated content. The first half was still talking about the relationship between flame dragon birds and red sparrows. The second half jumped directly to Leo. He quickly contacted Leo using the Dragon Heart code. After waiting for a while, Leo responded. A vague thought seemed to be that it had found a strange place in the depths of the volcano. There was a passage without magma, and there was a deep attraction coming from the depths of the passage. It was probably the unknown creature reward of the smoke mission. Even if it tried to rush into the passage, its magic power form couldn't leave the magma. If it turned into flesh and blood, the magma passage would be too narrow. It was in a dilemma. Chapter 956. In order to get what was attracting it to the magma underground, Leo finally agreed to start training in the form of armor with List. So in late September, List was stationed in the endless volcanoes for a long time. After a good run-in with the bone dragon Winnie, he had a deep understanding of the training of the elemental dragon armor form. As long as Leo was willing to cooperate, it should be very easy to train. Moreover, Leo's control over himself was far greater than Winnie's control over the bone dragon, so it might be easier. But no matter how easy it was, it still took time to train. At the same time, the orders of chivalry began to gather on Flame Island. The Earth Knight who had passed the political review gathered on Iron Hoof Island through the Shinlu teleportation array. They were about to cooperate with the Sapphire Dragon to launch the Eagle Kingdom's expedition. In the Phoenix Forest, the great elf Ancient was busy riding Goldie, Little Red, and Little Purple slowly approaching the 5 Inferno dragon birds. Unlike the Cardinal's hostility, when the Inferno dragon birds saw their own kind, they acted more affectionately and did not show a confrontational posture. Ancient also took this opportunity to establish a preliminary friendly relationship with the 5 new Inferno dragon birds. The Inferno dragon birds were the kings of the cardinals. About 200 or 300 cardinals needed to hunt wild birds from all over the world for the Inferno dragon birds to enjoy. This relationship was like the class difference between the Storm Draconic Horse and the Pegasus. However, no matter how precious and rare the Inferno dragon birds were, List did not have the time to pay attention to them. His and Leo's training had encountered serious obstacles. No matter how Leo cooperated, the armor form he condensed could not do what List wanted. It was just a ball of flame surrounding List. Staring at himself wrapped in gelatinous flames, so bloated that it was somewhat inconvenient for him to move, he sighed silently. What was thought to be a simple training had become a huge problem. Roar! Leo also looked very impatient. It could not transform into a beautiful set of armor according to List's idea. Moreover, it suspected that List was fooling it. This method was not feasible at all. It was purely a waste of its dragon magic. It's not that you can't, it's that you can't control the form of your magic power. List shook his head. I seriously suspect that your strength is rapidly increasing, but you still haven't completely mastered your own body. You're only 4 years old, but you already look like you're 40 years old. Oh. Leo felt that his innate talent could not be measured by age. I think you should just transform into a dragon spear. With your current level of control, you can probably transform into a dragon spear. List thought so in his heart, and so did his actions. Leo reluctantly cooperated. However, to List's surprise, Leo quickly condensed into a 10-meter-long fire dragon spear. The body of the spear was dark red and shiny like a piece of red-hot iron. It was slightly distorted, and one could vaguely see a pair of abstract dragon wings attached to it. The tip of the spear was formed by the tail of a fire dragon and was covered with dragon scales. The end of the spear was in the shape of Leo's dragon head and had a few sharp dragon horns. Holding the spear, he felt that this dragon spear was like an extension of his body. Its size, length, and weight were all natural and smooth to him. Oh! This feeling is power. Leo, although you failed to transform into armor, you succeeded in transforming into a dragon spear. I can feel that the dragon spear you transformed into is definitely the most powerful dragon spear in the world. Oh! Leo's roar came from his mind. He longed for battle. Very well, as you wish. List called out, and the skull and dragon head pattern on his face immediately spread to his whole body, condensing into a set of bone dragon armor. Winnie's voice sounded in his mind, Your Highness, do you need me to transform into a bone dragon sword? I already have the fire dragon spear. List grabbed the fire dragon spear and put on the bone dragon armor. He leaped, and the bone dragon wings on his back spread out. Although he couldn't fan the air, he could increase his momentum. When he reached a high altitude, the invisible dragon Bard suddenly flew over and caught him. He sat down on the dragon tooth platform and entered dragon rider mode. As his thoughts spun, Bard folded his wings and dove toward the valley. Using the spear of rat halos in conjunction with the secret technique of the dragon's battle energy, a flaming meteor shot out from the tip of the spear like a meteor falling from the sky, instantly blasting toward the valley. There was a loud noise. A huge explosion occurred in the valley. The entire valley and the surrounding mountains shook violently. In the flames and dust, Bard quickly turned around, flapped his wings, and rushed out of the range of the explosion. After flying a few rounds in the sky and waiting for the thick smoke and dust to disperse, List saw the effect of his powerful attack. A meteorite pit with a diameter of 20 meters appeared on the ground. Powerful. This is power. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ha! Affected by his mood, 3 voices sounded in his mind at the same time, Oh! Your Highness is so powerful. Wuxia. Although he was powerful, he still had to solve the problem. Leo still couldn't transform into an armor. Because of this, List had to change his way of thinking and no longer force him to transform into an armor. Instead, he let Leo wrap him up perfectly, and then Leo drove him forward in the magma. After practicing for nearly 10 days, he finally formed a perfect combination with Leo and tried to dive into the magma in the state that was now named Flame Wrap. To ensure safety, he first tested it bit by bit to make sure that the magma wouldn't burn him through the flame wrap. Only then did he truly enter the volcano of Doomsday. Under Leo's guidance, he quickly dived into the tumbling magma and went straight down the tunnel. With Leo's perception, he could feel that the surroundings were filled with fire magic. He swam in it like a fish in water, easily and freely. However, as he dived deeper, the stagnation became stronger and stronger. When he felt that he couldn't hold on any longer, Leo finally turned and led List into the U-shaped magma tunnel at the side of the tunnel, and gradually spiraled upward. A moment later, they had already reached the end of the magma. Whoosh! The flame wrap rushed out of the magma and jumped into a red dry tunnel. The flame wrap quickly retreated, and Leo once again attached to his chest in his totem form, magic form. Is this the place? List held his breath and carefully looked at the tunnel. With the red magma as a light source, the tunnel wasn't dark. However, after a few turns, they were getting further and further away from the magma, and the light gradually dimmed. He took out the hand magic tube, shone the light from the crystal lamp, and carefully moved forward along the tunnel, looking for something that attracted Leo. The hint of the smoke mission was an unknown creature. A creature that could live here was definitely extraordinary, so List had to be as careful as possible to avoid being killed by an unknown creature. They walked for a full 5 minutes. At the end of the tunnel, there was a flashing red light in front of him. It looks like there's a cave there. It should be the nest of an unknown creature. Winnie, armor form. Understood, Your Highness. Bone Dragon Winnie quickly turned into a set of bone dragon armor and extended a bone dragon sword, which was held in List's hand. With the protection of the armor, he felt much safer. After dawdling for a moment, he finally walked along the tunnel to the entrance of the glowing cave. Looking inside, he was shocked. The cave was like a huge spherical space, the walls were glowing as if there were countless red gems decorating it. The most incredible thing was that at the bottom of the cave, there was a bird's nest made of firewood that was on fire. In the bird's nest, there was a glowing reddish-gold bird egg. The light that illuminated the cave came from this bird egg. In fact, rather than saying it was a bird egg, it was better to say that it was a glowing translucent gem. An extremely rich fire element magic lingered around it, making this bird egg look extremely noble. With one look, it was obvious that this was an egg laid by an extraordinary creature. The energy level is very high, it's a supreme fire element magic. What kind of creature left this egg? After confirming that there were no adult unknown creatures guarding the area, he slid down the wall and walked to the side of the bird egg. In fact, he couldn't be sure that it was a bird egg, but he was sure that it was indeed an egg with life. Chapter 957. Roar. Leo told List through the telepathic bond that he wanted to eat the egg. However, List ignored him. This place was too small, and Leo could not come out. He could just ignore his opinion. He circled around the egg, carefully observing the incredible egg. The glow from the egg was golden and very bright. It flickered steadily like it was breathing. However, the glow was not dazzling at all. It was exceptionally gentle, giving him a warm and comfortable feeling. The dry firewood below the egg was burning fiercely, but the firewood did not burn. It still looked like dead wood, and the flames were made of fire magic. So it looked like the egg was being roasted over a fire, but it had not been cooked for a long time. Such intense fire elemental mana, and the bird egg is a supreme fire elemental mana. It must be extraordinary. In this world, apart from the fire dragon, there's only such an extraordinary fire attribute supreme demon in this world, and it's probably the legendary phoenix. List's eyes were like torches as he thought. After the fall of the Moon Empire, the night ruled the world. Many of the civilizations created by the spellcasters had been lost, so people now mistook the blazing dragon bird for a phoenix. However, the relationship between the unicorn and the storm dragon horse made List realize that the real phoenix was far more powerful than the blazing dragon bird. However, he did not dare to confirm that the phoenix really existed. Only now did he realize that he might really have found a phoenix egg after seeing this magical egg. I have to take it away. No. There must be a reason why the phoenix chose to build its nest here. It's very likely that this volcano is the key to hatching the egg. If the phoenix was real, it would definitely be on the same level as the unicorn. It was as incredible as a dragon, and the conditions for its hatching were naturally harsh. According to the legends, the phoenix could be reborn from ashes. Perhaps this was the place the phoenix had chosen for its rebirth. Roar! Leo shouted, wanting to eat it. Calm down, Leo. You can't eat this egg. It's a phoenix egg, do you understand? Phoenix egg. A phoenix is a magical creature just like you. Roar. Whether it was a phoenix or a turkey, Leo just wanted to eat the bird's egg. However, How could List let Leo eat a future phoenix? He couldn't even bear to let Leo eat the flame dragon bird. He ignored Leo's roar. He observed it over and over again, remembering all of the characteristics of the phoenix egg, as well as this bird nest made of fire. At the same time, he took out the shining red stones on the wall and stuffed them into his spatial ring as a sample for future analysis. No, I can't hold my breath anymore. I have to leave this place as soon as possible. There was no breathable air in the cave. List had been observing here for an hour and a half. He could not hold his breath any longer. However, he was a little unwilling. Let me touch the phoenix egg before I leave. Thinking. He stretched out his hand and slowly stroked the mysterious golden stone-shaped egg the size of a football. When Zhang Xian's fingertips came into contact with the egg, he didn't get burned as he had imagined. Instead, he felt an emotion similar to a newborn chick's yearning for freedom. It was a kind of uplifting positivity. It was as if an eagle should fly above the 9 heavens, and a whale should swim in the vast ocean. It was a phoenix, and it should live freely in the mortal world. Life and death should be vigorous, like a burning fire. Phoenix, you and I are fated. List instantly responded with his own emotion, and through his fingertips, he had some kind of special communication with the life in the egg. If you want to live a vigorous life, then follow me. My life is like my surname, Flame. The burning flame is destined to sweep the world. He didn't know if the life in the egg understood him, but he couldn't feel any new emotions. He only had a vague idea that if this egg wanted to hatch, it would need a vigorous volcanic eruption. Maybe the phoenix chose to be reborn here because it was waiting for the doomsday volcano to erupt one day in the future, and then it would be reborn from the fire. However, because of Leo, it kept absorbing the volcano's super mana, and the doomsday volcano was almost half dormant. Don't worry, I will help you hatch it. After making his promise, List didn't hesitate anymore. He quickly left the cave and returned to the lava through the tunnel. Leo turned into a flame and quickly took him back to the outside of the volcano. Taking a breath of fresh air, List sat on a hot rock to recover his strength, and called out the smoke quest. Quest completed, reward, phoenix egg. It really is a phoenix egg. He showed a knowing smile. After a cheese unicorn Charlie, he was about to get another legendary creature, Phoenix. A moment later. New quest released, quest, 500 years for a cycle, wait for the right time to be reborn. This is the immortal bird Phoenix. Its noble character is indescribable, and its power is mysterious. Since you are fated to see the phoenix and wait for its rebirth, you naturally have to help it. Please hatch the phoenix egg. Reward, a phoenix. Without the smoke quest, List would also help the phoenix hatch. Now what List had to do was to persuade Leo to launch a volcanic eruption to meet the conditions for the phoenix egg to hatch. However, Leo was angry right now, and List didn't let him eat the phoenix egg. He was very unhappy, and it was even more impossible to use the supreme mana to guide the volcanic eruption. Then let's wait first. The expansion order is coming. I have to take the dragons to the Eagle Kingdom to contain the other party's Dragon Knight. I'm afraid I don't have time to take care of the newly hatched phoenix. When the expansion order is over, I will hatch the phoenix egg. The phoenix egg was not suitable for hatching for the time being, but it did not prevent him from studying the blood-red stones in the phoenix nest. These were a few stones with strong fire attribute magic. The surface was rough and had many impurities. It was not as crystal clear as gems and crystals, nor as delicate and smooth as jade. The magic is a little difficult to extract and activate. It feels a little troublesome to study. Forget it, I'll just throw it to the Guild of Magic for research. His time was too precious to be used for research. Back to the Phoenix Forest. The great elf infant's work was very good. He had successfully integrated with the 5 new flaming dragon birds and let the flaming dragon birds restrain these grumpy cardinals. List, the cardinals will not dare to attack humans in the future, or Ancient will let the flaming dragon birds pluck their feathers. Well done. List was not stingy with his praise. Paris smiled and said, with Ancient here to manage the flock, the safety of the knight and the serfs is guaranteed. There is no need for me to interfere anymore. Your Highness, please transfer me back to Reed City to contribute to the construction there. You are now a light magic great swordsman, and your strength belongs to the top of the knight. Leading the orders of chivalry is what you should do. However, don't participate in the construction of the territory for the time being. I am arranging for the orders of chivalry to go to the Eagle Kingdom. You should also join the expedition team and get promoted as soon as possible. Chapter 958. The majestic pioneering war finally kicked off at the beginning of October. The vast majority of the Sapphire Grand Duchy's fleets had already assembled and set off from the Iron Hoof Island's Iron Hoof City, carrying a large number of knights, towards the coastal hinterland of the Eagle Kingdom. There was no special timing or destination for the battle. List just felt that the coastal hinterland of the Kingdom of Eagle should be where there were more people and wealth. With the Sapphire Dragon leading the charge, there was no way to resist. The stubborn castle would be destroyed, and the Knight of the Kingdom of Eagle would still be captured. More noble lords seemed to know their ending, especially the lesser lords, who chose to surrender and avoid the battle. Lee William was the chief commander of the Orders of Chivalry in the Fire Territory and Oxtail Territory. At his birthday party last month, List officially gave him the Combat Aura Secret Manual as a birthday gift. Although half a month was not enough for him to become a Domain Knight immediately, with his mount, Super World Warcraft, Black Albatross, his combat power could reach the level of a Domain Knight. Behind him were the light magic great swordsman Paris, the sword Saint Durut Red Apricot, and Cross Buckthorn. Even Emily, who was still getting used to Ethan, participated in the battle. She was also a sword saint, and she had suppressed Durut, Claws, and the other sword saints. She had become a powerhouse second only to Lee William in the battle between the knights. In addition, List also sent 7 Sky Knights, Fox, Garcia, Derek Iron Armor, Joyce Dandelion, Speck, Vernal Ink, and Tevis Alfalfa. These Sky Knight level powerhouses formed a luxurious attack line, and no one was a match for them. In order to prevent the Kingdom of Eagle from sending out the Dragon Knight to deal with the Grand Duchy of Sapphire's usual invasion, List personally led the luxurious Dragon Legion to secretly supervise the battle. Invisible Dragon Bard, Grey Iron Dragon Orn, Fire Dragon Leo, Bone Dragon Winnie, and Light Emerald Dragon Ethan. Only Marta the Copper Dragon stayed on Flame Island to guard the territory and prevent the Moon Killers from rebelling. Although most of the Moon Killers belonged to the Serf class, their living conditions were much better than in the forest. More importantly, List adopted the strategy of division. Although the original ancient sorcerers had to serve for the big project, their children had entered the school, received good education, and were promised to become nobles in the future, which also made them less motivated to rebel. Furthermore, the territory also has the magic shooter, a Chi, riding a unicorn Charlie, whose strength is like the Dragon Knight. One person is enough to suppress everything. In short, the outcome of this pioneering order war was predetermined since the beginning. It lasted for a full month. The Sapphire Dragon crossed more than 1,000 kilometers in the hinterland of the Eagle Kingdom and conquered a large number of castles. The captured knight was transported in a steady stream in the direction of Sapphire, and the serfs were driven away in batches without even a fig leaf. Most of them would be sent to Blazing Island, with only a small portion serving as spoils of war for the Sapphire family, as well as a share of military exploits for other minor aristocrats. List, who has 6 dragons, does not mind becoming fat in one bite. The number of dragons is the hard truth. No matter how many captured knight came to the Fire Kingdom, they had to work here honestly and become the vassals of the Fire family. Preposterous. In the royal palace of Moonshine City, the Iron Dragon Chain Palace, Eagle King Adonis moonlight silver threw the wine glass in his hand on the ground. Looking at the information sent by the intelligence knight, the bearded man stood up in anger. How dare he do this? List, this little bastard, the second son raised by a despicable small family, how dare he provoke the Eagle Kingdom again and again? Sapphire, this group of flies raised, are all as lowly and disgusting as maggots. List stole the kingdom's gray iron dragon and light green sapphire dragon. Andre, this little bastard, actually betrayed me and ran away on the mountain copper dragon. He suddenly smashed the table with his fist. He gritted his teeth and cursed, unforgivable, all unforgivable. Adonis, you need to calm down. Anger is of no use. The queen looked at the broken pieces on the ground and worriedly supported Adonis. Adonis pushed the queen away. Don't bother me. What does a woman know? The queen frowned and did not say anything. Adonis continued to roar, someone, convey my order. Immediately dispatch the dragon knight of the kingdom and kill all the flies, Sapphire, and that crippled sapphire dragon. Kill it for me. The knight guarding the palace looked at each other, at a loss. It was the queen who stood up. Adonis, you should wake up. She then waved her hand and motioned for the knight to leave first. She wanted to speak to the king alone. When the knight had left, the queen said, do you want to trigger another dragon-slaying war? Who can do anything to my Eagle Kingdom after killing the sapphire dragon? Can't you see the intention behind the sapphire families continuing to launch the expansion order? It is List who is secretly supporting them. Think about his invisible dragon, the light green sapphire dragon, the gray iron dragon that once belonged to us, and that fire dragon, as well as the bone dragon in the intelligence, and the magic shooter riding a unicorn. Every time the queen mentioned the name of a dragon, Adonis grew weaker. By the time he mentioned the unicorn, he had already collapsed on the chair. Then, Tiffany, my wife, tell me what I should do now. The kingdom is in a precarious situation. What you need to do is to maintain the current situation, train new dragon knight, conquer new dragons, and let the kingdom survive this crisis. Do you know how difficult this is? First, Karl Law died in battle, then the light green sapphire dragon was lost, then Lure died in battle, and the gray iron dragon was lost. The blast furnace castle and the iron and steel ridge have long lost their ambitions. In the face of the aggressive fire kingdom, they are only blindly pleasing, hoping to coexist peacefully. Adonis wanted to laugh as he said, they are too naive. From List's attitude towards my Eagle Kingdom, we can see that he is an ambitious person, a very ambitious person. He has the invisible dragon and has nothing to fear. Now he has caught the Eagle Kingdom and bitten them. Sooner or later, he will bite the blast furnace castle and the iron and steel ridge to death. Then we will compromise, make a gesture for them to see, and let them understand List's ambition, Queen Tiffany said calmly. Compromise? Yes, all forces that are not the core interests of the Moonlight Silver family and the White Iron family can be abandoned. Those nobles have been under the protection of the royal family for many years, but have not contributed anything. It is better to throw them to the Fire Kingdom. The low-level knight is not important, the important thing is the dragon. Do you really think this is feasible? Whether it is feasible or not, we can give it a try. Otherwise, what else can we do? The blast furnace castle and the iron and steel ridge refuse to join forces to obliterate the Fire Kingdom. We have no hope of winning the dragon-slaying war alone, we can only protect ourselves. Sooner or later, these two kingdoms will see clearly the true face of List's ambition. Adonis was silent for a long time. In that case, I will let the ministers of the kingdom enter the palace and discuss in detail. List did not know what the Eagle royal family's reaction was. Riding on the invisible dragon bard, List scouted the battlefield and watched batches after batches of knights, serfs, elves, food, minerals, and other resources being packed and transported away. List smiled like a 200-pound fatty. I thought that trade smuggling was the most profitable. Then I thought that gifts from friends were the most profitable. But neither is more profitable than waging war. Chapter 960. The war, which lasted more than a month, ended before the arrival of winter. Seeing orders of chivalry evacuate the Eagle Kingdom with the plentiful spoils of war, List relaxed a bit and left with his dragon regiment. All the spoils of war were distributed on the Iron Hoof Island. According to the distribution principle, mineral resources and the like were directly handed over to the Sapphire family for distribution. List did not ask about it. He already had the Dragon Pit Mine and the Jade Mountain Vein, so he did not care about the looted resources. The migrating serfs and the seized food were all enjoyed by the Flame family alone. Therefore, every batch that arrived was quickly sent to the Magic Gate of the Spirit Island and then transported to the Flame Island. The local officials would quickly arrange for the serfs to live and work together with the Flame family and the Moonkiller family. Since neither side understood the other's language, a lot of unnecessary trouble was avoided and they could just immerse themselves in work. The captured knight on the battlefield would be distributed according to the knight's wishes. Those who wanted to pay the ransom in exchange for freedom would be temporarily imprisoned on the Iron Hoof Island. Those who did not want to pay the ransom would simply surrender and be sent to the Flame Island to be incorporated. Their families and sprites could also be brought over. List promised the knight through the officials that the knight did not need to hand over their wealth as long as they worked for the Flame Kingdom. Before the founding of the kingdom, their sprites would have to serve the Flame Island. According to the degree of their service contribution, they could exchange for military merits and obtain titles of nobility. After the founding of the kingdom, they would be granted land according to their military merits. List told all the knight that the kingdom would be founded within 3 years. The knight was reluctant to pay the ransom before surrendering. Now, not only could they keep their sprites, but they could also continue to be noble knight, so why not? The ransom of the knight who refuses to surrender will be collected and distributed by the Sapphire family. Of course, if it involves nobles above the rank of count, I will have to personally arrange it. List had already explained that ordinary knight, knight lord, and baron viscount could not be squeezed out too much ransom. However, nobles like counts and marquises could squeeze out lesser sprites and greater sprites. Although List no longer cared about the sprite worm, he was still reluctant to part with the lesser sprite and the greater sprite. This time, they captured 2 marquises and as many as 11 earls. Under the attack of the Sapphire Dragon, these nobles were no different from ordinary knight. After riding the dragon back to Iron Shoe City, List was enjoying a massage from a maid in the study of the castle. Has the knight count been calculated? He asked Gort, who came to report the distribution of the spoils of war. Thanks to His Royal Highness's grace, we've had a great harvest this time. We've recruited a total of 4,672 Earth Knights and more than 7,600 trainee knights. Gort's face was flushed red. His strength was weak, and his noble rank was also very low. But now, he was one of the first 2 elders of the Fire Kingdom. He and Marcus did not have the qualifications to become greater aristocrats. The highest noble rank was at most a viscount, because a count needed to become a sky knight. But even though he only had the title of baron, he still enjoyed tremendous power, often managing the territory on behalf of List. Only 7,600 trainee knights? List frowned. Well, Your Royal Highness, as you know, there are not many Earth Knights who can afford to raise trainee knights as retainers. Most of the retainers are ordinary people. These retainers are counted as serfs. Just like List. He was just a trainee knight. Although he was conferred the title of baron, his retainers were only 4 ordinary people. Many Earth Knights did not even recruit retainers. If they recruited retainers, they would have to provide food and drink. Many Earth Knights could not even feed themselves, let alone raise retainers. Marcus was a good example. He was an elite Earth Knight, but he did not have a single retainer. He raised his own horse, carried his own spear, and cleaned his own armor. List nodded slightly and asked, "Have these Earth Knights and trainee knights been sent to Flame Island?" "Yes, every time a batch of knight is sent, after obtaining the knight's willingness to surrender, they are sent to Flame Island for reorganization." From the message sent by the magic platform, there were some twists and turns. "But with His Excellency Achilles in Reed City, those knight do not dare to make any trouble." Although Achi was a pure little siren who was favored by the unicorn. However, her worldview was quite different from that of humans, and with the bad teachings of List, she did not have too many taboos about killing people. Perhaps to her, killing people was like killing sea monsters that were harmful to her when she lived in the sea. So when List entrusted her to guard the magic sweeping reed gate and told her to kill anyone who rebelled, she did it without any room for negotiation. She did not have a benevolent personality. Whether she was pure or not had nothing to do with the killing itself. It was a portrayal of the desire in the heart. Killing with desire and profit was definitely not pure, but killing chickens and dogs for meat was just a normal behavior in life, and it did not mean that it was impure. Therefore, Achi could ride the unicorn and casually kill the knight who caused the disturbance. With the powerful symbolism of the unicorn, she naturally stood on the moral high ground when she killed people. The humans close to the unicorn must be the embodiment of virtue. Her Highness the Magic Shooter rode the unicorn, the knight who was killed by her must be a bad guy. Moreover, in the world of the knight system, strength was respected. Was it a big deal for a dragon knight or magic shooter to kill people? Even if a few great nobles were destroyed, no one would dare to talk behind their backs. After all, the dragon-raising family was the big player. After asking the Earth Knight and the trainee knight, List asked new questions. "Advisor Gort, how many Sky Knights are there?" "There are 57 Viscounts who chose to surrender, 2 of them are sacred swordsmen, 21 are ordinary Sky Knights, and the rest are just elite Earth Knights. There are 45 Viscounts who refused the title and chose to pay the ransom, all of which have been handed over to the Sapphire family for distribution." "How did the 11 counts choose?" "Your Highness, they have not been summoned by you, so they have not responded yet. At present, only 3 counts have chosen to pay the ransom. That is to say, there are still 8 counts who may surrender." "How strong are they?" "For ordinary Sky Knights, 3 sacred swordsmen Sky Knights, and 1 perfect Sky Knight." "Well, a perfect Sky Knight, that's interesting." List was very interested in this count. There were many battles during the pioneering of Flame Island. Fighting against the stubborn Moonkiller tribe and the ferocious world of Warcraft required a powerful knight as a safeguard. List couldn't handle all the troubles. He was the future king and couldn't work everywhere. Suppressing the idea of immediately summoning this count, he continued to ask, "There are also 2 marquises, what attitudes have they revealed?" "Well, let's talk about the Marquis of Wildwave first." The Marquis of Wildwave, Di Maria Yuwashi, was tragically captured by List for the 2nd time. His territory happened to belong to the rich coastal hinterland of the Eagle Kingdom, and there was a large river for shipping supplies, so it became the first place to be attacked. The strong walls of the great river Heart Castle could not stop the Sapphire Dragon. Under the Sapphire Dragon's dive, half of the wall collapsed. Then a white flag was hung at the top of the wall, and the Marquis of Wildwave wisely chose to surrender. Gort smiled, "Your Highness, the Marquis of Wildwave is not imprisoned, and he has been acting as your Highness follower everywhere. He has promoted your Highness' glory among the captured nobles, and recruited these Viscounts and Counts for your Highness." Another Marquis originally refused to surrender, but these days he has been persuaded by the Marquis of Wildwave. Chapter 961. Other than the Marquis of Wildtao, there was another Marquis captured, the Marquis of Chongshan, Elton Golden Chrysanthemum Medal. The Golden Chrysanthemum Medal family was an old Marquis family, and its territory was adjacent to the Marquis of Wildtao's. However, compared to the Marquis of Wildtao's domain knight strength, the 40-year-old Marquis of Chongshan only had the strength of a blade master. The golden chrysanthemum metal family was derived from a potion flower, the metal chrysanthemum. The family's emblem was a circular medal in the shape of a chrysanthemum. Not only was Marquis Elton captured, but almost all of the territorial knight class was captured. At that time, he summoned all of his followers to his golden chrysanthemum castle, ready to defend the castle until the expansion order ended. Therefore, after Sapphire broke through the castle, none of the noble knight escaped. His territory alone contributed 4 earls, 12 viscounts, and a large number of knight. Your Highness, Elton doesn't have much choice. Most of his family's wealth has been plundered by the orders of chivalry. There is no way to pay the ransom for him and his followers. The speaker was Marquis of Wildtau, D. Maria Yuwashi. In the study of Oxhoof Castle, the first person Liszt summoned was Marquis of Wildtau. As an old acquaintance and a follower, Marquis of Wildtau enjoyed the treatment of freedom. The two sipped tea across the desk. The atmosphere was very friendly. Marquis of Wildtau had lived on Black Horse Island for a long time and fell in love with green tea. Since then, he and the Flame Territory had been secretly smuggling sea salt, glass, white paper, and other goods. The Yuwashi family had long been at odds with the Eagle Kingdom. It was normal for them to sway to the Flame Kingdom. Marquis de Maria, if the surrender is successful, what kind of treatment do you think the Golden Chrysanthemum Metal family deserves? Liszt asked casually. De Maria smiled. Your Highness, there is actually a very good way to quickly subdue the Golden Chrysanthemum Metal family. Oh, tell me about it. Elton has a younger brother called Elroy. He is only a viscount, only 30 years old, but he is already an old blade master, not far from completion. It is only because of Elton's suppression that he has been unable to be promoted to Earl. Elton acts absurdly, while Elroy acts calmly. At this point, De Maria's meaning was self-evident. Elton and Elroy were both sword saints, but it was obvious that Elroy was more talented and had a more mature personality. He was more suited to be the family head and inherit the marquis position. Liszt could use this as an excuse to promote Elroy to the position of marquis. Elroy would definitely be grateful to Liszt and control the Golden Chrysanthemum Metal family well. However, Liszt had no intention of doing so. He smiled faintly. The Yuhua stone family can be preserved, but the Golden Chrysanthemum Metal family cannot be preserved. As long as Elton is willing to surrender, I can keep his marquis title after the founding of the nation. But his followers will form new families on their own, and so will Elroy. Your Highness, what do you mean? For a moment, De Maria did not understand Liszt's intentions. The Flame Kingdom is a new country. The old powers need to be destroyed. This is not to prevent the clans from getting stronger, but to create more clans to assist me in ruling the Flame Islands. I understand, Your Highness. De Maria understood immediately. Indeed, the new kingdom needs too many nobles and knight. Actually, coming to this land, even if Your Highness does not break up the clans, the powerful nobles and knight will leave on their own. Your Highness, the Yuhua stone family is also willing to break up. I will dismiss my knight followers one by one, including my nephew Deborah Yuhua Stone. Since we have come to the new kingdom, I hope that the Yuhua stone family can also be reborn on this land and completely integrate into the Flame Kingdom. Liszt smiled slightly and nodded. You are a reasonable noble. Don't worry. Follow me, and the Yuhua stone family will only continue to grow and not decline. The population of the territory is not large, but there will be endless wars in the future. Enough people will be plundered to make up for the losses of the large clans. When he summoned the second marquis, Elton Golden Chrysanthemum Metal, De Maria did not leave. He had already received Liszt's approval and became the knight's assistant. Elton, you and I have known each other for a long time. I have already clearly told you His Highness' intentions. Even if you do not break up, you will not have the ransom to redeem your followers. You can also see the growth of the Flame Kingdom and the decline of the Eagle Kingdom. I hope you can think clearly about your choice. After listening to Di Maria's words, Elton glanced at Liszt, whose face was expressionless. He only allowed Di Maria to summon him, and did not receive any friendly messages. With Liszt's status, he did not need to smile at any nobles. They were all prisoners of war, at his disposal: pay the ransom and leave, or surrender and pledge loyalty. There were no other paths. If not for the fact that he was a great noble, he might not even see Liszt's face. But, if I break up the family's followers, how will the Golden Chrysanthemum Medal family develop? For 3 years, they will serve the kingdom and work the land for His Highness. After 3 years, they will be enfeoffed. The Golden Chrysanthemum Medal family can naturally rely on the enfeoffed territory to rise again. Without a knight, how can they rise? Di Maria said. After 3 years, there will definitely be a large number of knight who cannot be enfeoffed. You can naturally recruit these knight to serve your family. Then what about my elves? The elves are still yours, but they need to serve for 3 years. Either you pay the price of a few big elves, return to your territory in the Eagle Kingdom, and continue to be free. Of course, if your territory is rich, you can also help pay the ransom for followers who are willing to go back. His Highness has always been tolerant of nobles and respects your wishes. Elton might have mediocre talent and acted preposterously, but he was, after all, born into a great noble family. Calculating for benefits was instinctive. After thinking for a moment, he nodded calmly. In that case, I am willing to follow behind His Highness. The Golden Chrysanthemum Medal family originally wanted to serve His Highness. After the 2 marquises, Liszt summoned 2 more nobles alone. One was a Sky Knight with the title of Earl at the level of perfection, Geoffrey Furonqui. He promised to be at least a Marquis title after the founding of the kingdom, and Geoffrey happily followed. The other was Elroy Golden Chrysanthemum Medal, a 30-year-old sword saint with good talent and imminent perfection. Without any need for Liszt to say more, he immediately expressed his willingness to follow. After that, in the banquet, Liszt invited all the 7 earls who had not yet chosen to pay the ransom to the banquet, and personally called for them to surrender. In the midst of hesitation, 6 earls finally announced their willingness to follow. Only 1 earl of the normal level Sky Knight, after thinking for a long time, still decided to pay the ransom. At this point, leaving aside the title, this time, Liszt directly subdued a Domain Knight, a Sky Knight at the level of perfection, 5 Sky Knights at the level of Sword Saint, and 25 Sky Knights at the level of ordinary Sky Knights. There were also more than 800 elite Earth Knights, more than 3,800 ordinary Earth Knights, and more than 7,600 trainee Knight. Liszt did not confiscate the sprites of these Knights, but only required them to serve for 3 years. The number of sprites he could really get was provided by the 4 earls who had paid the ransom, a total of 7 sprites. According to the requirements, at least 3 of them were potion and grain sprites. However, compared to the high-level manpower and material resources of the knight and sprites, his biggest gain was the serfs at the bottom. More than 500,000 serfs, civilians, and craftsmen were crazily transported to Flame Island. What the new Flame Kingdom needed the most was population replenishment. Sooner or later, everything could be obtained by plowing the land. As night fell, Liszt was looking at the spoils of war in the study. He said to himself regretfully, the only thing that is a little disharmonious is that these knight and serfs are all from the Eagle Kingdom. If only I could rob the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom a few times to dilute it. Chapter 962. After the night incorporation in Oxhoof City, Liszt did not stay long and hurriedly left Oxhoof Castle. First, he went to Black Horse Island and left the Grey Iron Dragon Orn there to continue suppressing the Flame territory. He also let the Pea Sprite Ash touch its scales to evolve. Then he returned to Flame Island. At this moment, Reed City could be said to be extremely crowded, and the air was filled with a foul stench. More than 500,000 serfs and knights were transferred here. Even though Reed Avenue had been repaired, it was still difficult to transport all the serfs out in a hurry. However, they just had to get through this period of chaos. In addition to the 5 major cities of Reed City, Fire City, Jade City, Dragon Valley City, and Estuary City, Flame Island had also opened up hundreds of settlements along the Whirlpool River Basin and around several avenues. Nearly 1.5 million Killer Moon serfs, in addition to cutting down the forest, were plowing the land and building wooden houses. A large number of wooden houses stood in the settlements, but they had always been empty and were still being built. Houses made of cement and brick were still high-end buildings and could not be popularized for serfs to live in for the time being. Wooden houses were the best choice and were also convenient to build. Because Liszt was very ambitious, regardless of whether there were people or not, he built a lot of ghost cities first. Since there were not enough seeds and many Killer Moon people could not plant fields, they simply built houses and tried to train them as construction workers to accumulate strength for the future infrastructure projects of the Flame Kingdom. However, in the chaos of Reed City, a lively open-air celebration banquet was about to be held. It had nothing to do with the captured knight, but Liszt's followers who had bravely won military exploits in the large-scale conferring war. Just this order of expansion alone had conferred more than 300 Lord Knight titles. These new nobles left gratefully without eating a bite of the food at the banquet. Today, basically 1 out of every 8 Earth Knights on Flame Island was a Lord Knight. The promotion rate was cheap. In the fief of other nobles, it was very difficult for an Earth Knight to be promoted to a Lord Knight. Here, one could be promoted by casually farming in World of Warcraft. The Baron has conferred more than 50 titles. The Knight of Flower Town and Black Horse Island have basically received the title of Baron. Baron Alvin Eaglesword, you have been forging magic equipment for the territory day and night. Although you have not set foot on the battlefield, you have made great contributions. Today, I have decided to confer you the title of Viscount. Before the banquet, Liszt read out the promotion list that had been written long ago. The Iron Knight, who had once fallen into such dire straits that his family's inherited weapon, the Ice Dragon Slaying Sword, was snatched away and he himself was thrown into prison, was so moved that 2 streams of tears rolled down his face. Your Highness, I, Arwen, am willing to serve your Highness for generations to come. Holding the knight's long sword, Liszt tapped each of Arwen's shoulders. Then, servants brought in noble costumes, badges, and civilized sticks. After a set of procedures, Alvin stepped back. Liszt read from the list, Marcus Wheel, step forward. Marcus suddenly trembled as he walked in front of Liszt and knelt on one knee. Your Highness. Marcus Baron Wheel, since the time of Flower Town, you have been training in orders of chivalry for my territory. You have worked day and night, trembling with fear, not daring to relax. You have made great contributions. In orders of expansion, you have taken the lead and beheaded many enemy knights. You have made great contributions. Today, I have decided to confer you the title of Viscount. Your Highness, I, Marcus, am willing to fight for your Highness and serve the Flame family for generations to come. Marcus took a deep breath and swore in the tone of a fanatic. The elite Earth Knight, who first followed Liszt, had his dreams realized early on. Now, every step forward was a huge dreamlike development for him. Although he knew in his heart that Viscount was basically his pinnacle title. Without becoming a Sky Knight, he could not be conferred the title of Count. This was the rule of the Knight system. But he still had a son, and he would do his best to cultivate his son. As long as he firmly followed behind his Highness, the title of Count was definitely not a chasm. Handing Marcus the costume, badge, and cane, Liszt smiled slightly. Teacher Marcus, it is time to give your family a new surname. Yes, your Highness. Marcus bowed and retreated. At this time, Liszt continued to read, Gord Baron Mast. Subsequently, several officials such as Gort and Charles, as well as several elite Earth Knights with veteran status, were conferred the title of Viscount one after another. Everyone expressed a lot of grateful declarations after the conferment. And this was not the end. At the final climax of the conferment ceremony, Liszt was still reading. Paris, step forward. Your Highness. The light magic great swordsman Paris knelt on one knee. Baron Paris, you have been my guard since the Flower Town era. During the Black Horse Island era, you served as the territory patrol leader and participated in the construction of the Flame Island territory. During the war, you have charged into the enemy lines and reaped great rewards. You have personally captured the Sky Knight. Your outstanding military service is outstanding. Today, I have decided to confer you the title of Count. She was a veteran of the Flower Town era and the first person to be conferred the title of Count. As a light magic great swordsman, her strength was comparable to that of a sacred swordsman, and she was enough to assume the title of Count. Paris solemnly replied, Your Highness, glory favors you. Paris is willing to charge into the enemy lines for your Highness and serve the Flame family for generations to come. The knight's sword pointed at Paris's shoulder. Liszt nodded and said, You are the first countess of the territory. You should set an example for all the female knight in the territory. I hope you can take on more important responsibilities in the future. Yes, Your Highness. After Paris withdrew, the conferment ceremony was still not over. At this time, the gazes of all the aristocrats were cast on another female figure that was slowly walking forward, Emily. This seemingly young girl had strength that made everyone jealous, amazed, and awed. She had also obtained the ultimate dream of a knight. Dragon riding. Many aristocrats of the territory already knew that Emily, the most terrifying talent at His Highness' side, had already begun to make contact with the light green gem dragon, preparing to ride the dragon. The Fire Kingdom could give birth to a second dragon knight at any time. Once it succeeded, she would be the only female dragon knight in the entire history of the legendary continent. Your Highness. Emily knelt on one knee. I am very pleased. I have seen your growth bit by bit. In the past, when a thin and weak little girl pledged loyalty to me in a childish tone, who would have thought that one day you would grow to such heights? And all of this happened in just 3 or 4 years. Liszt didn't use official lines like before. He expressed his admiration for Emily without any scruples. This girl never let him down. Baron Emily, when you were managing the giant elephant orders of chivalry, you worked hard and made great contributions. In the war to open up the order of chivalry, you were even more meritorious. Today, I have decided to confer you the title of Earl. Your Highness, Emily is willing to be the spear and sword of Your Highness. After the process was completed, Liszt said again, You are still young. The title of Earl is not your final destination. Continue to work hard. As you wish, Your Highness. Looking at the followers who were conferred titles and those who were not, Liszt smiled and said, Those who are not conferred titles, continue to work hard. Those who are conferred titles, continue to work even harder. Within 3 years, the Fire Kingdom will be established. When the kingdom is established, you will be conferred lands according to your titles. I hope that by then, countless aristocrats will be born from you. Your Highness, please. At this point, the conferment ceremony ended, and the banquet started immediately. Please remember the original domain name of this book. 9 Heavens Godly Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 963. Early the next morning, after Liszt finished his morning training, he held another high-level noble meeting. Not only the Knight of the Flame territory, but also the noble knight who had just been captured from the Eagle Kingdom, and 2 mages attended the meeting. The knight and mages were all seated at the conference table. Butler Carter, together with a few servants, poured a cup of fragrant milk in front of every knight and sorcerer with a long spout iron kettle. Liszt picked up the cup and tasted it gracefully. This milk tea is different. Di Maria, you may not know since you just arrived. This is the milk produced by the dragon-type cow, Banpo cow. Long-term drinking has great benefits for training. The ranch is expanding the scale of Banpo cow. In the future, all the knight of the kingdom, especially the young knight, will be able to drink Banpo cow's milk. Di Maria picked up the cup, tasted it deeply, and could not help but praise, it's indeed the milk produced by the cow. The effect can't be felt yet, but the taste is fragrant. It's better than any milk I've ever drunk. It's indeed delicious. The taste is delicate and soft. It's enough to drink Banpo cow's milk every day. Your Highness, I didn't expect to be able to drink the milk of a dragon-type cow one day. The new nobles were full of admiration. Whether they liked it or not, it was right to brag. In fact, Banpo cow's milk was indeed worth bragging about. Among the dragon-type creatures, dragon-type wild beasts were the lowest level, but they were also the rarest. According to List and Achi's research speculation, the conditions to infect dragon-type wild beasts were very harsh. It had to be a young dragon to infect wild beasts, and the bloodline infection power would not cause the beast to explode. Adult dragons basically did not have the possibility of infecting dragon-type wild beasts. The bloodline infection power was very violent, and non-Warcraft could not withstand it. Therefore, dragon-type wild beasts had always been rare. The Sapphire family had raised the Sapphire dragon for 100 or 200 years. There was only a group of blue-blood horses that were unknown if they were infected by the Sapphire dragon. The royal families of the three kingdoms all had some dragon beasts that were infected by adult dragons. Young dragons and dragon-type wild beasts were almost unheard of. List controlled 3 types of dragon beasts: black blood horse, Banpo cattle, and estuary pig. He still had 2 young dragons, the fire dragon Leo and the invisible dragon Bard. In the future, he would continue to explore the infectious power of their bloodline and infect more dragon-type beasts. After drinking the milk tea, the meeting entered the main topic. List was not a fan of long-winded arguments, and he always got straight to the point. The influx of knight and civilians has injected new blood into the development of Blazing Island. Population is always the source of a country's development. But we also need to see the current chaos in the territory. After a pause, he continued, the management work is very difficult, but I believe that all of you can handle it well. In 1 month, I need to see all the new and old people living and working in peace and contentment. As for the new knight, you must also adapt to your new identity within this month and coordinate your work direction. As you wish, Your Highness. The followers responded in unison. List nodded and said, I don't often stay in Firewood Castle. My father, Marquis Oxtail, will be staying in Firewood Castle for a long time. When I leave, he will be in charge of the development of the territory. Lee William took over List's topic and said, everyone, let us work hard for the establishment of the Fire Kingdom. As the father of the Dragon Knight and the father of the future king, he was in charge of the development of the territory. The knight class would not have any objections. Everyone nodded in acknowledgement. List announced the second personnel decision, the development of the kingdom is huge, and the transportation is not convenient. In order to better assist Marquis Oxtail in his management work, I will directly set up a development committee as a temporary cabinet before the establishment of the Fire Kingdom. Every royal family would set up a cabinet, and the nobles would enter the palace as ministers to coordinate the affairs of the kingdom. Although the Fire Kingdom had not been established yet, it was only a matter of time. Therefore, it was necessary to set up a temporary cabinet. In the current situation where there was no land to enjoy, the noble knight who participated in the meeting all looked at List with hope, hoping that he could be selected as a member of the development committee. List's gaze swept over the many noble knight who were eager to try. He directly announced, Marquis Oxtail will be the chairman, Di Maria Uwashi will be the vice-chairman, Gort, Marcus, Elton Golden Chrysanthemum, Geoffrey Furonqui, Duarte Red Apricot, Emily, and Paris will be the committee members. Chris and Kenley will be the special committee members to coordinate the Guild of Magic's participation in the development of the territory. When the results came out, some were pleasantly surprised, some were disappointed, but no one raised any objections. It was reasonable for Marquis Oxtail to be the chairman. Di Maria, who had just surrendered, immediately became the vice-chairman. This was completely Liszt's way of thanking him for his performance in persuading Liszt to surrender. Moreover, Di Maria was a domain knight and had been a marquis for many years. His original fief was also very rich, and his management work was trustworthy. Gort and Marcus had low ranks and low strength, but they were Liszt's confidants. During the Flower Town era, they had served as Liszt's teachers, and their relationship was not ordinary. Geoffrey had also just surrendered. He was a domain knight at the perfection level, in his prime, and had a heart to improve. Liszt was looking forward to his performance. Duarte was a count who had already surrendered during the Black Horse Island era, so it was reasonable for him to be valued. There was no need to talk about Emily, as she was the only candidate for the Dragon Knight plan. There was also no need to talk about Paris, as many people in the territory were rumored to be the Lord's secret lover. Only Elton, who had been strongly advocated by the two marquises during the discussion between Liszt, Lee William, and Di Maria last night. Liszt himself looked down on this kind of good-for-nothing who liked to suppress his brothers. He was born as a second son, and he always felt that the noble families were too harsh on the second sons. China traditionally had the concept of more children bringing more blessings, but the nobles here only needed one child. If they had more, there would not be enough resources to nurture them, so they could only be kicked out of the family and let the second son fight on his own. Of course, the greater the noble, the less harsh the concept of second sons. After all, the family was rich, and they did not mind nurturing a few more children. Elton was born a great noble, but he treated his more talented younger brother harshly. It was clear that his character was poor. However, Lee William and Di Maria believed that the territory was in chaos at this stage, and that it was key to stabilize the knight hierarchy as soon as possible. And if a noble with a high rank was put in an important position, the knight hierarchy would quickly feel at ease. Liszt did not worry too much about such things, and readily went with the flow. Thus, Elton joined the development committee. As for the two great magicians, Chris and Kenley, they served as special committee members to coordinate the Guild of Magic. They themselves did not participate in the construction of the territory, but focused on the research work of the Guild of Magic, as an existence similar to the Academy of Sciences. Everyone, the important task of developing Flame Island will be handed over to you. As you wish, Your Highness. At the end of the meeting, the Development Committee announced to the public, and the significance of the temporary cabinet quickly became apparent. All official work was no longer crowded on Liszt's desk. Therefore, he took some time, brought a chi, and quickly headed to the volcano of Doomsday. Through the deal of 20 bottles of Red Dragon water, Leo had already agreed to cause an eruption at the volcano of Doomsday. Chapter 964. A chi couldn't dive under the volcano, so she could only wait for the phoenix to be born before doing research, or study the blood-red rough stone named Stone of Phoenix Blood. The stone was rich in fire magic. After a chi's preliminary research, the function of this stone was to condense fire magic. It could rely on some special properties to gather the free fire magic in the surrounding air to form an abundant fire environment. The accumulation of many Stone of Phoenix Blood was equivalent to building a magic circle to provide an incubation environment for the phoenix egg. After the phoenix is born, these Stone of Phoenix Blood can be mined and condensed into a fire training field in the Knight Academy for the knight with fire chi to cultivate. Liszt thought, and the Stone of Phoenix Blood can be placed together with the phoenix perching parasol tree to attract more red sparrows and flame dragon birds. Once these firebirds were tamed as mounts, they would definitely be powerful. The elite guards of the Burning Legion, Orders of Chivalry, could rely on red sparrows and flame dragon birds as mounts. The Sky Knight rode the flame dragon bird, and the elite Earth Knight rode the red sparrow. Achi, I'll go down with Leo to check if there's anything wrong with the egg. If there's no problem, we'll guide the volcano to erupt today and help the phoenix be born. Okay. Soon, List, wrapped in Leo's flames, came to the dry passage with ease and trotted all the way into the cave. The phoenix egg didn't change, and the dead branches below were still burning. Touching the egg with his fingers, he felt the yearning for freedom again. This was a primitive emotion, not a soul with subjective consciousness. But he still couldn't help but rely on the unreliable emotional communication with the phoenix egg until he couldn't hold his breath. Back to the ground. It's time to start. List rode on Leo, took a deep breath, and began to circle around the crater of Doomsday. Leo's dragon magic quickly resonated with the lingering magic of the volcano. This was a kind of innate magical ability that originated from the bloodline instinct. When the resonance reached the level of resonance, the crater of Doomsday, which used to be calm and only emitted hot air, trembled slightly from the depths of the ground. The trembling tremors increased as Leo continued to circle. What came out of the crater was no longer just hot air, but also thick black smoke. The mountain also began to collapse. Rocks cracked in many places and rolled down the mountain. The ground within dozens of kilometers was shaking, and the clouds in the sky were stirred up by the tremors. They quickly gathered into ring-shaped dark clouds and connected with the volcanic smoke, forming a black umbrella. Suddenly, a mouthful of dark red lava spewed out from the crater of the volcano, but it soon stopped. But in less than a minute, another mouthful of dark red magma spewed out, and then the magma began to erupt intermittently. Looking from afar, the volcano of Doomsday looked like it was breathing rapidly, constantly expanding and shrinking, accumulating energy in preparation for the moment when it would erupt. Time passed by slowly. In the blink of an eye, List and Leo had already been at the resonance volcano for 20 minutes. At this moment, the volcano of Doomsday that had been accumulating power finally welcomed its earth-shattering moment. The thick smoke between the heavens and the earth was suddenly dispersed by a pillar of fiery red magma. This magma pillar was like a spear piercing the sun, piercing through the rainbow and shooting up to 300 meters into the sky. The splashing magma was like exploding fireworks. The fiery red magma splashed everywhere, quickly drowning the entire volcano of Doomsday. At this moment, it was as if the magma pillar was the entire world, destroying the heavens and the earth. He was riding Charlie the unicorn. She had already hidden very far away, but she could still feel the heat from the volcano eruption. Charlie, this is the masterpiece of Big Brother and Leo. Isn't it beautiful? Snort. Charlie let out a snort of unknown meaning. Although it was a magical unicorn, many of its habits were not much different from a horse. The phoenix is about to come out. In the legends, the phoenix is a magical creature like you, Charlie. Chi touched Charlie's mane and said. Charlie shook his head, as if expressing his disdain. Around the magma pillar, Leo panted heavily as he dodged the falling magma. He was not afraid of the burning magma at all, but he had to be careful with List on his back. If he caused the volcano to erupt and burned his knight to death, then it would be a huge joke. Fortunately, when the magma pillar gradually weakened and only thick smoke was left, Leo and List were still unharmed. It was just that they had used up a lot of supreme magic. But with the red dragon water, Leo did not suffer a loss. Moreover, after causing the volcano to erupt, he felt many volcano supreme magic become active again. He breathed deeply and absorbed these volcano supreme magic. Let's go, Leo. Wrap yourself in flames. Let's go take a look at the phoenix egg. List took a deep breath of the outside air and rode Leo into the mouth of the flame amidst the thick smoke. The magma was still slowly overflowing. Diving into the depths of the magma, he could feel that there were many cracks in the entire magma tunnel. Luckily, the main tunnels were still intact, and the branching dry tunnels did not collapse due to the tremors of the volcano. Running quickly, he rushed into the cave. The circular cave walls were full of cracks, and dense volcano supreme magic gathered here. Golden light flashed violently. That was the phoenix egg struggling to break out of its shell. But what surprised Liszt was that the egg could not break out of its shell. The phoenix inside seemed to be struggling and could not come out. When he got closer, he could feel the phoenix's primitive emotions, unwillingness and anxiety. A strong impact on his senses. What's going on? According to the information from the phoenix egg, it needs a volcanic eruption to break out of its shell. Why can't it do it? Liszt frowned. He focused and summoned the smoke mission. Mission: 1 reincarnation every 500 years. Wait for the opportunity to be reborn. This is the immortal phoenix. Its noble character is indescribable, and its power is mysterious. Since you are fated to see the phoenix and wait for its rebirth, you must naturally help it. Please hatch the phoenix egg. Reward: a phoenix. There were no changes, and there was not much information for him to learn from. The power of fate wants me to help it. I have already used 20 red dragon water in exchange for Leo's help. It can be said that I am helping it with everything I have. Why is it still not successful? Seeing that the phoenix egg's struggle was getting weaker and weaker, Liszt began to feel anxious. Could it be that you want me to help break the egg? This was obviously just a thought. He reached out to touch the flashing phoenix egg, trying to get new information from it. However, in the emotional exchange, he could only feel the despair of the phoenix. He could not get any useful information, the phoenix egg had not hatched yet, and the soul did not seem to have formed, so he could not get any clear information. Roar! Leo sensed the phoenix's imminent danger through Liszt, so he immediately sent out his consciousness. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that the phoenix egg hadn't died yet and eat it to nourish himself. Eat? Liszt suddenly thought of something and quickly took out 3 phoenix feathers from his spatial ring. These were not phoenix feathers, but the tail feathers of the fire dragon bird. Most of them had been absorbed by Leo, and only 3 were left for emergencies. He quickly placed the phoenix feathers on top of the phoenix egg. In the next moment, the phoenix seemed to feel something. The surface of the egg flashed, and the 3 phoenix feathers turned into ashes. All the magic was absorbed by the egg. But this magic was obviously not enough to satisfy the need for the phoenix to hatch. Liszt could only look at Leo again. Leo, it's time for you to perform again. Chapter 965. Oh. As expected, Leo rejected him without hesitation. Let's be reasonable. If you didn't absorb all the volcano super magic in the volcano of Doomsday, the phoenix would have enough magic to incubate. Of course, it's not your fault. It's all ownerless resources. Whoever gets it can have it. Besides, Flame Island is my territory. He quickly communicated with Leo in his mind. Reasoning was useless. In the end, he traded with the red dragon water. With the continuous consumption, Liszt only had 50 bottles of red dragon water left. Leo quickly stated his bottom line price, 50 tubes. He wanted to squeeze out all of Liszt's stock in one go. Okay. At this critical moment, Liszt could not bargain. Since both his hands were his dragons, it was not a loss to give the red dragon water to Leo. Quickly. He put his hand on the phoenix egg. Leo's dragon super magic flowed through his hand and into the phoenix egg through his fighting energy meridian. Like rain after a long drought, the phoenix egg sensed the dragon super magic and began to absorb crazily. An endless stream of dragon super magic entered the phoenix egg, causing the golden light on the egg to shine again. The phoenix could break out of the egg at any time. However, something unexpected happened. At this moment, Leo, who was attached to Liszt's chest, activated his magic at lightning speed. Not only did he pull back all the leaked dragon super magic, but he also sucked all the magic in the phoenix egg into Liszt's body. Then, the essence of the phoenix egg began to flow toward where he was attached. He was going back on his word and directly swallowed the phoenix egg. Stop, Leo. List did not have the time to express his anger at Leo's behavior. He overestimated the evil dragon's character. He thought that by using emotion, reason, and benefits, he could make the dragon compromise. He did not expect that Leo would go back on his word because of his lust. The phoenix egg lost its luster at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it became a dark red stone the size of a football. Its essence entered List's body along with Leo's magic. Even that primitive consciousness entered List's body and quickly connected with his thoughts. He could sense that the pure, unadulterated soul was on the verge of collapse before it could even form a complete, phoenix personality. Leo exuded a greedy thought, wanting to devour everything about the phoenix. However, List acted decisively at this moment. He quickly activated his dragon warrior energy and forcefully cut off Leo's magic power, cutting off his greed for the phoenix essence. He then tried to reverse the flow of his chi and send the phoenix essence back into the egg. It didn't matter if he couldn't hatch it for the time being. He could hatch it again in the future. It was a pity, the nature of the phoenix egg had changed along with the extraction of the phoenix essence, and it could no longer receive any magic. In the blink of an eye, the phoenix essence fused into List's body, fusing into his limbs and bones, fusing into the depths of his cells. The phoenix's primordial soul was also pulled into his soul by the power in his mind. His spiritual force, which had already been strengthened by the power of destiny, expanded even more at this moment, and his mind was filled with countless pieces of information. The most obvious manifestation was in his eyes, where flames burned and danced. Inheritance. Phoenix. I actually fused with the phoenix, or has my body become a carrier for the phoenix's rebirth? The information flow was too powerful. It was the innate ability of the phoenix's bloodline. This made List instantly understand what had just happened. The phoenix had the ability to be reborn from the ashes. After being schemed against by List, when it was about to die, it relied on its instinct to fuse its ability with List's body, wanting to be reborn in List's body. It was unknown what would happen after the rebirth. Would List obtain everything about the phoenix, or would the phoenix replace List, or would the two coexist in the same body? However, none of this happened. The power of destiny took action. The smoke dragon's power attached to List's body directly pulled the phoenix's primordial soul over, using it as nourishment for List's soul. Thus, the phoenix's rebirth ability fell silent and sank into the depths of List's body. It's a pity that there are no more phoenixes in this world, he sighed. However, the next moment, the flames in his eyes suddenly flickered with a bright light. But, I am a phoenix now. Then, flames rose from his body. The next second, List's hands seemed to quickly melt into flames. From the flames, a pair of wings covered in golden feathers condensed. He suddenly flapped his wings, bent his legs, and jumped. His whole body rose into the air and flew around the spherical cave. The flames on his body became stronger and stronger, completely melting him. The flames did not extinguish, but what was wrapped in it was no longer a human. Instead, it was a phoenix bathed in golden and red flames. It was handsome, slender, and had golden and red gem-like feathers. Its whole body was similar to a fire dragon bird, but flames accompanied every part of its body at all times. Its tail was no longer 7 tail feathers, but 9 tail feathers made of flames. Gold and red reflected each other, and the flames and feathers merged into one. At this moment, the phoenix that List had transformed into was the flames, and the flames were the phoenix. What a wonderful feeling, a miraculous experience. Leo's scheme, although the phoenix hatching failed, gave me an ability similar to a druid's transformation. The phoenix's essence had already integrated into his limbs, bones, and the depths of all his cells, just like the blood code of the sun's child. This was most likely a transformation spell established at the genetic level. And his soul had just devoured the phoenix's original soul, so it was easy to control the phoenix's power. Roar! Leo was still attached to the phoenix incarnated List's body. Although he coveted the phoenix's power, he could no longer seize it. His heart stirred. List retracted the phoenix's power and regained his human body. He equipped his chi equipment and put on his clothes again to avoid exposing himself. Even if there was no one around, he could not casually expose his body. He quickly stored the already dim phoenix egg as well as the extinguished pile of firewood into his space ring. Looking at the phoenix blood stone on the cave wall, he sank into contemplation. In a flash, smoke serpentines floated before his eyes. Mission failed. You devoured the phoenix. This was his second smoke mission failure. Previously, he failed to evolve the tulip sprite worm, and this time, he failed to hatch the phoenix. It was a pity, but it was also a blessing in disguise, as he obtained the ability to transform into the phoenix. After returning, I have to speed up the process of restraining Leo. I have to complete the spirit imprint as soon as possible, so as to avoid this kind of situation from happening again in the future. He could not be angry with Leo. Leo's nature was that of a vicious dragon, and everything stemmed from its instincts. He could only blame himself for not being prepared enough to thoroughly control Leo. At this time, a new smoke mission was issued. Mission: the demise of a worldly oddity often indicates the changes of the times. Even fate is constantly changing. You have to learn to make the right choice amidst the many changes and grasp the laws of the world. Please leave behind a fire seed for the phoenix. Reward: birds paying homage to the phoenix. Chapter 966. Preserve the fire seed for the phoenix? When List saw the content of the smoke mission, his eyes suddenly lit up. This meant that the phoenix might not really die, there was still hope for it to be born. But what should I do? He inexplicably thought of the phoenix egg he had put in the space ring. Although it had lost its essence and become a lifeless stone, he had not carefully verified whether there was still a phoenix aura in it. Perhaps this magical creature had other ways to preserve the fire seed. Go back and analyze the situation with a chi, let her study how to preserve the phoenix fire seed. I can't think of a way here. He glanced at the stone of phoenix blood on the walls of the cave. He really wanted to dig all of them out, but this cave was neither big nor small. He could extract at least 100 tons of stone of phoenix blood, and it would take a long time to dig them all out. Moreover, no serfs could come down, so he had to dig out the phoenix blood stone by himself, which was very troublesome. I will leave it for the time being. If the phoenix egg really retains the fire seed, perhaps this is still the best place to breed the phoenix. As long as the volcano of doomsday is not extinguished, sooner or later a real phoenix can be reborn here. He shook his head. He spoke to fire dragon Leo in his heart. Leo, don't come to the volcano of doomsday to cultivate in the future. I will seal this place and breed the phoenix. Roar. Leo was very reluctant, but he had already understood the suppressed anger in List's heart, so he didn't dare to act rashly. List gained the ability to transform into a phoenix through misfortune, but he still hoped to get a single, real phoenix. After all, after obtaining the ability to transform into a phoenix, his body had undergone unknown changes, and he couldn't guess whether this change was good or bad. However, as described in the smoke mission, even fate was constantly changing. Misfortune may be a blessing in disguise. Now that the choice had been made, the bad choice had to be made up for as soon as possible and get back on the right track. The good choice had to continue to go in and accumulate greater benefits. Let's go. List did not call Leo to transform into a flame. Instead, he leaped and quickly transformed into a noble, beautiful, and domineering phoenix with a wingspan of 3 meters and a body length of 3 meters. Although his body was not big, he was like a monarch in the flames, and his brilliance was unfathomable. The wings flapped. Like a fiery red arrow, it sped through the passageway. This was not because it relied on air currents to fly, but because of the phoenix's innate ability to control fire, allowing it to fly as gracefully as a flame. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at the magma. Without any hesitation, he dived into the magma. Like a ball of fire, Liszt quickly merged with magma. At this moment, Liszt also had the abilities of Fire Dragon Leo. That was because the phoenix he had transformed into was also made up of fire attribute supreme demons. However, the nature of the fire attribute was slightly different, and it had a more endless charm. Leo's fire element was the ultimate fire element magic power with the eternal nature. The phoenix's supreme fire element magic power, on the other hand, was the ultimate fire element magic power with the property of resurrection. Both types of fire super spells were the ultimate manifestation of fire mana, but in different directions. Just like how every species of dragon had different supreme magic, it seemed that once a creature developed to the supreme magic level, it would obtain a unique extreme. As Liszt flew through the magma, a lot of information continuously attacked Liszt's soul. These were all engraved in his phoenix bloodline. Splash! Soon, he rushed out of the magma and into the dark sky. At this moment, the sky was filled with thick volcanic clouds, which blocked the sun's illumination. He quickly rushed into the sky, soaring for 90,000 miles until he broke through the dark gray volcanic clouds and reached a higher sky, where he could see the entire mountain and land. Only then did he steadily hover in the air. The golden and red feathers and flames made his phoenix incarnation look like a new red sun. Flying on a dragon and flying on his own were two completely different feelings. At this moment, he really wanted to open his mouth and cheer loudly. However, from the phoenix's beak came a mysterious, rhythmic cry that was sharp, sonorous, dignified, and lively. Screech! It was similar to the cry of the flame dragon bird, but the nobility revealed in it was not something that the flame dragon bird could have. In the phoenix's field of vision, he looked like a normal human, but he could see many red spots of light on the ground. He could instinctively distinguish the nature of those flames, the magic power of the volcano, the magic power of the magical beasts, the magic power of the plants, the natural flames, and the fire magic power floating in the air. However, the phoenix could not clearly see the situation of the magic power outside of the flames. After hovering in the air for a while, it familiarized itself with the phoenix's flying ability. After a while, it found the location of the phoenix parasol forest and flew directly there. It's very fast. I feel that it should be supersonic. It's not slower than a cheese unicorn Charlie, maybe even faster. It's just that my phoenix incarnation is still in its infancy and has not been fully developed. In a few breaths, he had already arrived at the phoenix parasol forest. The flame dragon bird and red sparrow that were entrenched here seemed to have sensed the phoenix's presence. The originally cheerful birds all hid in the forest and trembled in fear. The phoenix did not have draconic aura. However, its presence was an existence that all Fire Element World of Warcraft feared from the heart. It was even more fearful than normal World of Warcraft's draconic aura. Screech! Liszt saw a Chi who was curiously looking at the phoenix. He wanted to greet her, but found that he was still speaking in bird language. Of course. After coming back to his senses, he immediately retracted his phoenix incarnation, put on his clothes, and summoned Fire Dragon. Under a Chi-surprised gaze, he rode on Leo and came to her side. "What, don't you recognize me?" A Chi opened her small mouth in surprise. "Big brother, how did you become a phoenix?" "It's a long story." At this time, without the suppression of the phoenix's presence, the flame dragon bird and red sparrow in the phoenix parasol forest had not yet recovered. They were swept by Fire Dragon's draconic aura and were scared out of their wits. Only the phoenix parasol tree great elf, Infant, flew over on Goldie and looked at Liszt curiously. It seemed like it did not recognize Liszt. Only when Leo looked at it and Goldie in disdain did it confirm that it did not recognize the wrong person. "Liszt, you've become a flame dragon bird." "Infant, I've become a phoenix, not a flame dragon bird." Screech, it looks so similar. It doesn't look like it at all. The flame dragon bird looks like a sparrow. How can it compare to the domineering and noble phoenix incarnation? But it really looks like it. Screech, but it's even more beautiful. Come here. He hugged Infant in his arms and then continued to communicate with a chi. Because of Leo's destruction, the phoenix couldn't hatch. Instead, it fused with me, giving me an ability similar to a druid's transformation. A chi, help me study the phoenix incarnation in the next few days. A chi nodded. Of course, a chi will definitely help Big Brother dig out all the pros and cons of the phoenix incarnation. Chapter 967. A chi's research task was very heavy. List was distressed, but he couldn't leave her research. The phoenix egg, dry firewood, and phoenix blood stone had been handed over to a chi to study how to preserve the phoenix fire seed. Of course, the most important thing was to study the phoenix incarnation to match the phoenix egg and preserve the phoenix fire seed. Brother, this is the ability of the phoenix incarnation for the time being. There may be some hidden abilities, such as rebirth from the fire, but it is very difficult to study. It is best not to try it for brother's safety. A chi handed the research materials to List. As for magic, a chi will try to help brother improve it. According to a chi's research and List's information from the phoenix bloodline, the abilities of the phoenix incarnation were basically created. There were about 6 magical and incredible abilities. The first one, Rising Flames, the phoenix had the ability to fly in flames. As long as there was a gap, its speed could exceed the speed of sound. Even if there was a wall in front, as long as there was a slightly large gap in the wall, it could directly rush through. The second one, Physical Immunity, the phoenix incarnation was the form of supreme magic condensation. Any physical attack could not cause damage to the phoenix incarnation, which was equivalent to an immortal body. The third one, Monstrous Magic, many fire magic was engraved in the bloodline instinct of the phoenix incarnation. However, List could only cast a magic similar to Flame Cut. After all, his phoenix incarnation was still in its infancy, but Flame Cut was based on high magic, and its power was equivalent to that of an ordinary magic shooter. Slightly inferior to the fighting power of a dragon, it obviously could not reach the magic level of a chi who was riding a unicorn. List hoped that a chi could help him design a few simple magic that was suitable for the phoenix incarnation. If he used talent magic, it would consume too much energy. The fourth one, Semi-Elementalization, this meant that he could turn part of his body into the phoenix incarnation, and his body had gradually developed into the elemental incarnation of a magic shooter under the subtle influence of the phoenix incarnation. However, without touching the magic net, he could only be semi-elementalization. The fifth one, Sublimation of Combat Energy, his dragon combat energy and the dragon's long-term training were at the high magic level. However, at this moment, after swallowing the essence of the phoenix and training with the dragon, what was extracted from the cells was not the high magic level dragon combat energy, but the supreme magic level dragon combat energy. When he and Leo entered the Dragon Knight mode, their combat power directly soared several times. When the dragon combat energy was completely transformed into the supreme magic combat energy, his strength would probably be the strongest among all the Dragon Knight. Finally, there was also the sixth one, 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix. This was the reward of the smoke mission, and a chi speculated that once List completely merged with the phoenix incarnation, he would have the ability to command birds. The reason was simple. List gradually realized that he seemed to be able to understand the cries of birds. When he flew in his phoenix form, those fire dragon birds and red sparrows would shiver in fear when they saw him. Occasionally, they would let out 1 or 2 bird cries, as if they were expressing their submission and reverence to him. Even birds that were not of the fire element could vaguely sense the meaning of the bird's cry. Charlie can feel a special malice coming from Big Brother. This should be the unwillingness of the phoenix to be devoured. This malice is preventing Big Brother from communicating with the birds. Perhaps by drawing out this malice, we can preserve the phoenix's fire seed and allow it to grow again. Why would I want to communicate with birds? Liszt always felt that the "all birds pay homage to the phoenix" ability was very awkward. He was not a bird man, so he did not need to communicate with animals. Hee. Achi giggled. If Big Brother can really develop the "all birds pay homage to the phoenix" ability, wouldn't he be able to form the Flying Orders of Chivalry? The Burning Legion's Guards Orders of Chivalry can also be quickly dealt with. Those fire dragon birds and red sparrows are all excellent mounts. Liszt decisively changed the topic. What do I have to do to draw out the remaining malice of the phoenix? This involves the stripping of the soul. It just so happens that Achi has made great progress in her research on Lich Andi. She has already made sufficient preparations and can strip him from the scar of fear and the dragon's soul at any time. Once Achi has completed the stripping experiment, she can help Big Brother remove the malice of the phoenix and inject it into the phoenix egg. Let's do it as soon as possible. I can also feel that there is a barrier between me and the phoenix's incarnation. I am still unable to merge with it. Perhaps it is this malice that repels me. December arrived. Liszt did not return to Firewood Castle for the past half a month. He only stayed in the endless volcanoes, researching the phoenix's incarnation. At the same time, he strengthened Leo's training and repeatedly cut away the malice that Leo had nurtured. He polished his own soul imprint more and more clearly, and the suppression on Leo became stronger and stronger. Based on this progress, in another 2 to 3 months, the soul imprint will be completed. My training with Leo will then reach the perfect Dragon Knight stage. At that time, even if he did not personally suppress it, the soul imprint would forcefully reverse Leo's malice. Just like that. He and Achi returned to Reed City together. Achi began to set up Lich Andi's soul-stripping experiment, while he went to Firewood Castle to inspect the progress of the territory's construction. Reality proved that the development committee had done a good job. It was not that they could not do anything without his territory. As long as he could ensure that the dragon's high-end combat power was enough to suppress the Fire Kingdom, the Night level would naturally be able to maintain the internal operations of the kingdom. After all, he did not reform the new system, nor did he upgrade the technology tree. Other than creating some white paper, glass products, strengthening the concept of hygiene and civilization, developing some infrastructure, magic projects, and formulating some reliable and unreliable strategies, he did not bring about too many changes. Everything was built on the foundation of the Night system, and it was not abrupt at all. In this magical fantasy world, even if there were some changes that were out of the ordinary, it was not surprising. After all, the people here saw dragons, elves, unicorns, and magic shooters all day long. They grew up listening to all kinds of incredible and mysterious legends. Everyone's ability to accept things was very strong. However, in the face of this situation, Liszt actually felt a little disappointed, as if he had become an unimportant person. In the past, he often complained that he was so busy with work that he did not have time to breathe. When there was no work, he felt empty and lost. However, he quickly adjusted his mentality. This is good. My dream has never been to be a king. Traveling the world, experiencing countless mysterious sceneries, and exploring the origin of mysteries, this is what I should be doing. When the country is on the right track, I will go out and explore. There were many people living in Firewood Castle. All the members of the Tulip family had moved here. Lee William, Lady Penelope, Lady Marie, Loria, and little Richard had moved here. His brother Levis was in charge of the development of Dragon Valley City, and his half-brother Lytton had entered orders of chivalry for training. He did not live in Firewood Castle. His sister Elvira and the Basil family that she had married into had also moved to Flame Island, settling down in Jade City and participating in the construction. Because the center of the territory had been moved to Reed City, a new Tulip Castle was being built there for the convenience of work. When it was finished, Lee William would bring the members of the Tulip family to move into the new castle. There were many castles under construction, built by the great nobles for their own convenience. They could not live in wooden houses like ordinary knights. In fact, Liszt had already chosen a location for his royal city. Firewood City, Jade City, Reed City, Dragon Valley City, and Estuary City were all rejected. He had officially decided to build the royal city near the sacred mountain of the Moon Slayers. Emily had been commanding the giant elephant orders of chivalry to build a road towards the sacred mountain of the Moon Slayers. In 3 years, to repair the royal city, the most important thing is to repair my palace. Please remember the domain name of this book. Godly Emperor of the Nine Heavens mobile version. Chapter 968. Emily, when the mammoth orders of chivalry arrive at the sacred mountain of the Moon Killer tribe, contact the local knight and magician who I sent to manage the sacred tribe. Ask the Moon Killer tribe to help the mammoth orders of chivalry build the city. Liszt met with Countess Emily, who had returned to the castle to report. I've appointed Jemiah Rammed Earth as the chief commander of the city construction. He'll lead the construction team to choose a suitable location for the city and the palace near the sacred mountain. He'll finish the preliminary work first. As you wish, Your Highness. How's your relationship with Ethan going? I've made a lot of progress. Ethan really likes the bone-burning wine, so I'll start from there. I'll drink with him to win his favor. I've also found a fruit wine brewed by the Moon Killer tribe. After blending it, the taste of the bone wine has been improved, and it successfully replaced the original bone wine. So Ethan is no longer against you. When do you think you'll get the chance to fight the soul battle? Liszt asked. Emily shook her head. Not yet, but Ethan has already relented. I believe the soul battle will come very soon. There's nothing special about Ethan's soul battle. You just have to face his heart and defeat him. I don't have much to teach you in this regard, because I destroyed the soul brand of the first Dragon Knight when Ethan was in a deep coma, Liszt said. The young lady was full of confidence. Don't worry, Your Highness. Emily will definitely defeat Ethan's soul. I'm looking forward to this moment. Liszt said with a smile. His handsome face coupled with his charming smile instantly struck Emily's heart, causing her heart to ripple unceasingly. Her face involuntarily turned crimson. Your Highness, your temperament has become somewhat different after returning from this trip. How so? Emily tried to find the right words to describe it. You seem to have become more domineering and aggressive. You can't look me in the eye, as if you can see through me. This was the change brought about by the phoenix incarnation. The phoenix was not a gentle and pure creature like the unicorn. The phoenix that was born from bathing in flames was a synonym for domineering and arrogant. This was a completely different image from the phoenix on Earth, which represented good luck. It would be more appropriate to call a phoenix an immortal bird. Liszt walked in front of the girl and looked into her eyes with a faint smile. Then what do you think I've seen through your heart? Emily wanted to avoid his burning gaze, but she quickly suppressed her shyness and looked straight into Liszt's eyes. Emily doesn't have anything on her mind. I'm just willing to devote myself to Your Highness. It was very straightforward. However, the atmosphere here was very open. A knight could boldly pursue a young lady, and a young lady could boldly pursue a knight. Even married knight and noblewomen would often fool around outside, even in public. As long as both sides could accept it, it was normal for them to go their separate ways. Of course, this did not mean that fooling around was moral. It was just that human nature was complicated. There would always be people who abided by morality, and there would always be people who broke it. Emily's bold confession made Liszt lose the joy of teasing the girl. He smiled a little awkwardly. You're still too young, Emily. The girl straightened her chest and said in a slightly hurried tone, Your Highness, I'm already 14 years old. After the new year, I'll be 15 years old. Let's talk about it when you're an adult. Right now, focus on riding the dragon. I hope that when the Fire Kingdom is established, I won't be the only dragon knight in the kingdom." Feeling Emily's breath, he changed the topic. This year was Sapphire Calendar Year 155. 3 years later, which was Sapphire Calendar Year 158, the Fire Kingdom would be established. At that time, he would be 23 years old, and Emily would be 17 years old, an adult. Qi would be 47 years old, still a long way from adulthood. It was hard to calculate when a siren would become an adult. When he first met an old siren called Izzy, she was already more than 400 years old. She was born from a conch shell. She grew her legs at the age of 55 and officially became an adult. Qi was born from a scallop shell. It was hard to say whether she would become an adult at the age of 55 like Izzy. Moreover, after becoming a magic shooter and obtaining elemental incarnation, Qi had already grown her legs. It was not impossible to say that she had long become an adult. Facing List's change of topic, the girl Emily's eyes showed a hint of disappointment, but she quickly adjusted. "I'll grow up quickly, Your Highness." This hint of disappointment was still caught by List. He suddenly reached out his hand, lifted Emily's chin, and said gently, "Grow up quickly." In an instant, Emily felt an electric current hit her body, giving her great excitement. Her chin unconsciously rubbed against List's fingertips, and she nodded heavily. Yes. The Phoenix incarnation was one of List's trump cards. He did not reveal it to anyone except Qi. He still chose to travel around on the invisible dragon bard. After seeing off the excited Emily, he went to the Reed Tower in Reed City to check on the progress of Qi's experiment. "Your Highness, you're here." The twins, Lucy and Lucy, were like the two little butlers of the Reed Tower. They learned from the High Mage and made rapid progress. They were no longer magic apprentices. Just 2 months ago, the younger sister, Ruth, had released an ordinary water magic, water arrow volley, and became a real magician. A month ago, the older sister, Lucy, had also successfully released an ordinary fire magic, big fireball, and became a qualified magician. And they were only 13 years old. 3 years ago, around the same time as Emily, they were sent to the Magic Academy by List and recommended to Chris as apprentices. 3 years later, both of them had become mages, enough to be crowned with the title of Genius Mage. According to the cultivation system of mages, apprentices usually started at the age of 10 to 15. The twins were chosen by List at the age of 10. After 5 years of study, apprentices who could become mages before the age of 20 were all geniuses. With their insight and understanding of magic, they had the chance to become archmages. For the twins to become mages in 3 years, it was almost certain that they would become archmages. "Hello, Lucy, Ruth." List greeted the twins kindly, but in his heart, he wondered if the twins would have the chance to become magic shooters after many years. After all, they were magic geniuses named by the Smoke Mission. Maybe they really had the chance. They watched as List entered the laboratory. The younger sister Ruth immediately put on a look of infatuation. "Your Highness is so handsome, like a blazing flame." Standing in front of His Highness, "I am so nervous that I can't breathe." The elder sister Lucy looked at her sister helplessly. "His Highness is the future king. Don't always think nonsense, okay? What's wrong with that? Why do you care what I think?" "Humph. Devotion to the truth is what a mage should do." "Sister, you are so stupid. His Highness doesn't like mages. His Highness likes arcanists. In the future, we will all become arcanists." "No, I want to become an arcana tutor, a powerful arcana tutor like Teacher Qi." Ruth held her head high, a few small freckles on her face as proud as her expression. Lucy did not speak. She picked up a magic book and read it carefully. The cover of the book read, "Grand Arcanists, Issue 13, published by the Arcana Assessment Board. The cover was an old great mage wearing a magic cloak. Although it was a drawing, it looked like a real person. Next to it was a line of eye-catching serpentines, inventor of the magic bicycle, leader of the power research group, Gundolf Truth. Chapter 969. The Great Arcanist was undoubtedly the brainchild of Liszt. He felt that the lack of magazines and newspapers in this world was a bit of an entertainment shortage. But there was no point in publishing a newspaper, because he didn't need to read it to know everything that was happening in his territory. With the repeated improvements of the magic platform by the Guild of Magic, it had now entered the era of Magic Platform 5.0. It was miniaturized, standardized, confidential, and simple. He could receive news from all over the territory at any time, and then there was a special squire to sort out the messages and send them to his desk. Therefore, there was no newspaper, but there was internal information, which was basically used for internal circulation of officials and nobles. But with the increasing popularity of the white paper, the territory's publishing industry began to flourish. Coupled with the conscious reform of the mage system, he signaled the Guild of Magic to publish The Great Arcanist, a periodical that focused on academics, so that the mages in the territory could set out for glory and make more inventions. Lucy didn't miss any issue of The Great Arcanist. She hoped that one day she could also be on the cover of this periodical. She was reading about Gundolf Truth. This great mage, Gundolf, came from the Kingdom of Eagle's vassal state, the Principality of Chrysoberyl. When he came, he didn't come alone, but with 11 mage apprentices and a large number of magic apprentices. Unlike the usual mages who were selfish and eccentric, Gundolf liked to teach magic. After learning that the Grand Duchy of Sapphire had given birth to an archmage, Gundolf took his disciples on a pilgrimage to Sapphire. After visiting the Guild of Magic, he immediately decided to stay here and join the guild. He was now a member of the Arcanist Assessment Board, and with the invention of the magic two-wheeled bicycle, he was promoted from an ordinary Arcanist to an Arcanist Master, becoming the 6th Arcanist Master of the Guild of Magic. I have a strong interest in dynamics and have been engaged in research in this area for many years. After coming to His Highness's territory, I found the wheelbarrow and couldn't help but be amazed by His Highness's invention. Compared with the carriage, the wheelbarrow can be said to be beneficial to the country and the people. Gundolf said in an interview with the editor of The Great Arcanist. Since then, he had a soft spot for the wheelbarrow and decided to improve it into a more convenient vehicle. One day, when he was collecting information in the plantation, he saw a serf pushing a broken wheelbarrow. The wheelbarrow had almost only one wheel left. Therefore, when the serfs pushed the wheelbarrow, they could put their bodies on the handlebars and let the wheelbarrow run by itself. This quickly gave Gundolf an idea. Since a wheelbarrow can be pushed by hand, why not make a wheelbarrow that can be pushed by foot? But pushing a wheelbarrow with one's feet was easier said than done. However, the glory of Liszt shines on every Arcanist who is willing to think. When Gundolf saw the wheels the serfs used to fetch water from the well, he was suddenly inspired. So he invented a wheelbarrow that could be stepped on, but he soon discovered that the wheelbarrow was not easy to balance. So he added a wheel. It became a two-wheeled vehicle, also known as a bicycle. Unlike the bicycle on Earth, the front wheel of this bicycle was very large, and the pedals were directly connected to the wheel. The rear wheel was very small and was only used for stability. Then Gundolf went on to set up a magic array for the bicycle so that it can run on its own. And so the magic two-wheeled bicycle was born. What a great invention! I hope I can also invent an invention like the magic two-wheeled bicycle. Lucy said enviously after reading the report. Lucy, who was mopping the floor, did not even raise her head and said contemptuously, "What's so great about that? Wait until the day I develop a bicycle that can fly in the sky, then that's called great." Brother, you're here. Yes. Achi has just finished the experiment of stripping Lich Andy's soul. Several great sorcerers are now dealing with the trivial matters of Lich Andy. A Qi pointed to the glass compartment of the laboratory, where several great sorcerers were busy collecting data and information. Among them was the vice president of the Guild of Magic, Kenli. Unlike Crazy, who mainly focused on administration, Kenli was very addicted to magic experiments and often came to a Qi's lab to help out and gain experience. The trivial matters were quickly completed. Lich Andy was pushed out of the glass compartment, and the great sorcerers also saluted to List, "Your Highness." "No need to be so polite." List walked to the stretcher and looked at the old, shriveled, humanoid creature that looked almost like Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, lying on the stretcher. He asked, "This is Lich Andy?" After being stripped of the scar of fear and the dragon soul, Lich Andy has returned to his human form. However, his body is on the verge of collapse because of the erosion of the soul power. He won't live for more than a few days. A Qi explained and pointed to the transparent jar in the hands of another great sorcerer. The dragon soul of the sapphire dragon is seriously polluted and needs to be purified for a period of time. The jar was a kind of soul container made by a Qi. The container was filled with a special liquid, and a dark blue transparent sapphire dragon shadow was swimming in the liquid. "This is the dragon soul?" "Yes, there's also the scar of fear over there." The scar of fear was an armor, a magical armor. Unlike ordinary armor, although the surface of this armor was silvery white, the inside was made of a material as black as ink. It was similar to the material of the sapphire dragon bow that List removed from the ghost ship. A great sorcerer recognized this material, obsidian, a kind of gemstone associated with old dragons. "It's very rare, but I don't know what its function is." A dragon over 800 years old was an old dragon. At this time, the dragon would leave its place of residence and fly to the legendary Valley of the Dragon. No one could follow the old dragon and find the Valley of the Dragon. Some even speculated that the Valley of the Dragon did not exist, and the old dragon just didn't want to die in front of humans. Obsidian. List picked up the scar of fear and felt cold in his hand. It was not a physical coldness, but a coldness that penetrated deep into the soul. It doesn't seem to be a stone, but more like metal. Obsidian is like metal and crystal. It's very strange. So what is the use of this armor besides transforming into a lich? Let's use the ancient book of knowledge to identify it. A Qi had just stripped off the scar of fear and hadn't had time to study it. She took out the ancient book of knowledge, and soon with a ray of light, a few words of the moon appeared in the book: obsidian, mithril, elven blood, isolation banishing fog. The materials were clear, but the function introduced at the end, isolation banishing fog, was somewhat unclear. A Qi quickly guessed, could it be some kind of fog used by the Lich to isolate the land of exile? According to the existing information about the land of exile, this is the border between reality and illusion. Once the soul enters, it will sink. It is likely that the scar of fear can rely on banishing the fog to keep the soul awake. It's possible. It's a good artifact. I have to put it away. Lich Andy's soul-stripping experiment was completed. Andy, who was like a grunt, was taken by the great sorcerers for related soul research. The dragon soul of the sapphire dragon needed to be purified, and it was also an excellent research material. It was left in a Qi's laboratory. There was no hurry to treat the sapphire dragon. After all, Grand Duke Andrew was not dead yet. At this moment, a Qi had accumulated enough experience to help List remove the remaining malice of the phoenix. Chapter 970. With a tremble of his soul, List, with a Qi's help, had successfully extracted the remaining malice of the phoenix from his soul and injected it into the petrified phoenix egg through the magic array. At the same time, a trace of List's consciousness was also extracted. This consciousness, similar to a spiritual imprint, was mixed into the phoenix egg and played a guiding role for the phoenix that would be born from the egg in the future. The intention of this spiritual imprint was very simple. It was to constantly hint to the flame family. It was to pave the way for his descendants to subdue the phoenix in the future. He felt that he probably wouldn't be able to see the birth of a new phoenix. Brother, the phoenix egg already has a breath of life. As long as it is placed back in its original place and incubated, perhaps after many years, a new phoenix will be reborn from the fire. Achi said. Also, according to Brother's description, Achi designed a simple magic array for the nest of the phoenix to incubate. This can help the phoenix blood stone to more efficiently gather the fire attribute magic. Perhaps it will be of great help to the birth of the phoenix. That's good. Extracting some of the soul that contained the consciousness did not have many adverse effects on List, nor did he feel exhausted. The soul here was the condensation of spiritual power. However, the soul seemed to be a non-renewable resource, unless a new life was born. For example, a bird egg was a lifeless mass of liquid that eventually grew a soul and became a living creature. Pregnancy was the same. Two cells fused and finally grew into a mass of flesh that slowly gave birth to a soul. The so-called rebirth from the fire of the phoenix did not seem to be true immortality. Instead, after the soul withered, the body was reborn. It felt like asexual reproduction. From List's perspective, the soul that carried memories was a person's true personality. The body was just a shell. Of course. It was hard to say if the phoenix could remember its previous life once it was born. After all, this phoenix was swallowed by List before it could be reborn. After resting for a day and confirming that there were no negative effects, he quickly rode the invisible dragon bard, crossed 2 natural nodes, and arrived at the volcano of Doomsday. He then turned into a phoenix and plunged into the half-dormant volcano. A lot of the magma had fallen, but it was still red and tumbling. He could travel through it in the form of magic. So he quickly entered the original cave, put the dry wood and the phoenix egg in place, and then began to repair the cracks in the cave, and set up the magic array that Achi had prepared. I don't know if I can keep the phoenix fire seed if I do this. He summoned the smoke mission and found that the mission had not changed. It was still in an incomplete state. This? Dispersing the smoke, he began to frown. He had done everything he could and discussed many plans with Achi. Only this plan of stripping the soul had a glimmer of hope. Who would have thought that even though he had tried so hard, he still could not complete the mission? The phoenix seemed to have died forever. Something's wrong. If the phoenix is really dead, the smoke mission will definitely fail, but now it's just an incomplete state. There must be a way. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but look at the entire cave and the phoenix egg again. Then is there any other way to keep the phoenix's fire seed? Fire seed, he looked at the pile of firewood under the phoenix egg. Through the appraisal of the ancient book of knowledge, this branch was a parasol tree. However, it looked a little different from the branches of the phoenix parasol tree, but its nature was similar. They were both fire elemental trees, and they were not afraid of fire. Before, the parasol tree branch was in a burning state, although it was only an illusion of fire elemental magic. Does this mean that there are not enough parasol tree branches? Legend has it that the phoenix only lived on the parasol tree, and it would not land unless it was a parasol tree. When he thought of this, he did not hesitate and directly left the volcano of Doomsday, went to the phoenix parasol tree forest, and picked a group of strong phoenix parasol trees to cut down. Then, he dragged the parasol tree branches and quickly returned to the cave, piling all the branches under the phoenix egg. He felt that the fire elemental aura in the cave was obviously much stronger. He turned into the phoenix again, and fiercely fanned the fire a few times, increasing the fire elemental magic in the cave to a very high degree. At this time, the pile of firewood that had not changed finally turned into flames, and began to roast the phoenix egg. Is it done? List's heart moved, and he summoned the smoke mission. This time, the illusory smoke finally changed, and it was a good change that he had hoped to see. Mission completed. Reward: birds pay homage to the phoenix. Not bad, I finally kept the fire of the phoenix. He breathed a sigh of relief, and at this time, a new smoke mission was issued. Mission: the territory has built countless schools. Although they are basically in a state of chaos, basic education is slowly unfolding. As the snow on Black Horse Island is about to arrive, it is time for the schools to conclude. Why not select the first batch of outstanding students to receive better education? Reward: Dark Ring. Selecting outstanding students? This mission is simple. Just take an exam. The civilian-oriented students will take a written exam, and the knight-oriented students will compete. It is best to build a regular system of examination system. When I go back, I will let the development committee prepare. I really need to train some outstanding talents to lay the foundation for my future Burning Legion. He did not pay attention to the Dark Ring reward. He could not see any useful clues from this reward. Glancing around the phoenix nest that was already on the right track, he did not delay any more, and directly turned into a phoenix and left the volcano of Doomsday. Standing on the solidified magma rock at the crater, he pulled out the Ice Soul Dragon Slaying Sword, stimulated the dragon's Do-Chi that had gradually turned into a supreme magic, and slashed a few times. A few huge cracks suddenly appeared in the crater. However, List did not stop at all and continued to slash. These cracks gradually formed a few rough serpentines. This mountain is sealed. Idlers stop. List flame. The volcano of Doomsday was officially sealed. Admiring his calligraphy masterpiece, he felt that these serpentines were vigorous and powerful, imposing, and very interesting. He thought again, I will let a Chi come here another day to set up a magic array and completely seal the crater to prevent anything from accidentally entering and disturbing the incubation of the phoenix egg. In fact, there was no need to do these fancy actions. Except for him and Leo, basically no human or animal could go thousands of meters deep into the magma and find the phoenix nest. It was better than nothing. Let's go. Without any more tricks, he directly turned into a flaming phoenix and went straight to the sky. At this moment, his mental state had never been so carefree. Since stripping away the remaining malice of the phoenix and solving the breeding of the phoenix fire seed, he was completely relaxed. Information from the phoenix's bloodline quickly integrated into his soul. It was information about the phoenix's domination of all birds. All birds pay homage to the phoenix. Receiving this information, he turned his gaze to the phoenix nest of the phoenix parasol tree forest not far away, where the flame dragon bird and red sparrow lived. Chapter 971. Caw. The phoenix incarnation let out a cry, and all the flaming dragon birds and cardinal birds that lived in the phoenix tree forest gathered around List, as if they were protecting a king. Compared to the previous flock, the flock was even bigger now because another group of fire elemental birds were attracted by the phoenix forest and settled here. Among them, there were 15 new species of birds. They also had fire red feathers, but they were bigger, stronger than the fire drakes, and taller than the cardinals. Also, they had a strong fire elemental aura, which had reached the standard of super warcraft. However, they didn't have the aura of a dragon, so they weren't dragons. Caw. Caw. These new species of super warcraft had crow-like cries, and they also looked like crows. Seeing this, List named them Fire Ravens. Whether it was the super dragon beast, the flame dragon bird, the super magical beast, the fire crow, or the high-level magical beast, the red sparrow, their cries all had a specific meaning. In the past, List had been unable to understand it, but now that he had obtained information from the phoenix bloodline, he was gradually beginning to understand their cries. They were worshipping List's phoenix. Caw. List let out another strange, domineering cry. However, the phoenix didn't seem to have a language, so he didn't know what he was calling. However, as these birds circled around him, he gradually felt a strange connection between him and these birds. It was like a simplified elven contract. With a thought, he could communicate his thoughts to the birds that worshipped him. This was the true meaning of all birds worshipping the phoenix. Therefore, after familiarizing himself with this ability, he quickly gathered the disorderly flock of birds according to his thoughts. 5 flaming dragon birds took the lead, while 15 flaming ravens followed closely behind. 341 cardinal birds lined up in a row behind the phoenix transformation, circling around the phoenix tree forest. Soon, Goldie, Little Red, and Little Purple, the 3 flaming dragon birds, joined in. Among them, Goldie was carrying the phoenix forest's great elf, Infant. List, Phoenix. Infant sat on Goldie's back and pointed at List's phoenix and laughed. It was very interesting. Caw. Screech. Goldie, Little Red, and Little Purple also worshipped the phoenix's incarnation, and List also obtained a simple contract to drive them. In other words, List had tamed so many super dragons, Super World Warcraft, and Advanced World of Warcraft without any effort at all. With a thought, he quickly returned to his human body. The supreme demons that belonged to the phoenix quickly retracted into the depths of his cells. However, there was still a portion of the phoenix supreme magic that remained in his meridians, continuously refining his dragon chi, allowing him to reach the powerful strength of a magic shooter even without riding a dragon. Magic shooters relied on the magic net to stimulate their powerful strength, while his strength came directly from himself. Of course, the consumption was also huge. The amount of potions needed every day was 5 times more than before. When the dragon's fighting energy completely ascended to supreme magic level, the consumption would probably be more than 10 times. There were gains and losses, and supreme magic shooters could not be created directly. After he returned to his human body, the flock of birds that had been lined up neatly quickly stopped. They looked at List with countless doubts in their eyes. Because after List returned to his human body, the contract of the phoenix quickly disappeared, and he could no longer control the flock of birds. Very soon, the flock of birds scattered and found their own places to wander, no longer paying attention to List. However, they did not show any hostility towards List. Even when List approached a linnet that had landed and was foraging for food, this linnet that was bigger than a calf did not react at all. Even when List reached out to touch its feathers, it only dodged 2 steps to the side. Then, List continued to touch it, and it dodged twice before not dodging anymore. It was only when List flipped over and rode it that it became a little angry and wanted to shake List off. After a few failures, it accepted its fate. As List continued to drive it, it seemed to understand the meaning behind it and flew directly into the sky. After circling around for a while, List steered the cardinal to land again. Not bad. Although the phoenix reverence of all birds was disconnected due to the withdrawal of the phoenix incarnation, I now have the ability to blend into the flock of birds. It feels strange, but the ability is very practical. The conditions to form the flight orders of chivalry have been met. I remember that there are a few fire element sky knights in the territory. I can give them to linnets as rewards. The fire dragon birds and fire ravens belong to the future orders of chivalry and could not be given out at will. However, it did not matter to linnets. There were a total of 341 of them. Moreover, my Phoenix Incarnation ability might not only be used against fire element birds. Let me find some non-fire element birds and experiment with World of Warcraft. He did what he thought of. List bid farewell to Infant and indicated to the invisible dragon bard to stroll around on his own. He then transformed into a phoenix and flew into the distance. Soon, they found a few bird-type magical beasts in a forest. They were all low-level magical beasts. These low-level World of Warcraft birds trembled in fear when they saw the phoenix. It took them a while to get used to it. They circled around the phoenix and established a contract with the phoenix. Wind element white-necked goose, earth element rock sparrow, thunder element violet light bird. Oh, just as I thought, the phoenix reverence of all birds is not limited to fire element birds. I can establish a contract with all World of Warcraft birds and dragon beasts. I am now the king of all birds. The king of all birds, Bird King. Judging from the aesthetics of Earth, this title did not sound very elegant. However, in this world where the night system existed, the ability to control all World of Warcraft birds was definitely a symbol of power that countless people admired and respected. After all, there were many noble surnames that were named after birds in World of Warcraft. The original owner of the precious Chi secret skill, Magic Eye, and Aura Decay, was Stephanie Vulture, whose surname was Bird. Only nobles could use words like World of Warcraft, flowers, gems, metals, and so on as surnames because these words represented strength, resources, and nobility. Commoners either did not have surnames, or they could only find a surname from rags. Most birds are not suitable for riding and cannot be developed into mounts, but there are still many birds that can be ridden, and some birds in World of Warcraft may even be used to transport goods, letters, and so on. List returned to his human form and stood on the branch of a towering tree. Beside him was the violet light bird that he could touch. This low-level Thunder Element World of Warcraft bird was only the size of a small pig, but it was very fast. I wonder if a Chi can find some information from the contract and develop a contract that allows a knight to sign with birds? He thought of the owl in Harry Potter, where the mages used owls to deliver letters. In this magical fantasy world, why can't a similar World of Warcraft be developed and used as a pet of the knight class to deliver letters and goods? Please remember the original domain name of this book. 9 Heavens God Emperor Mobile Version Website. Chapter 972. It was snowing on Black Horse Island, and winter was coming. Unlike the previous winter, when there was still a big battle atmosphere, Black Horse Island was now gradually depopulated. A large number of plantations were abandoned, and several small towns were almost uninhabited. Many workshops had also disappeared, leaving only a few places that still had a lively scene. One was the Kelp town near the sea, which was an important magic potion production site. Many knight and serfs lived in the Kelp forest. The other was Kelp City, a seaport city on Black Horse Island that was open to the outside world. Near Kelp City was Thorn Castle. Thomas, as usual, took the keys to each room and patrolled all the rooms up and down the castle. He patrolled all the way to the castle's study. Several young servants were cleaning the study, and when they saw Thomas, they greeted him, Mr. Thomas. Thomas, with his meticulously combed hair and the same serious expression, just nodded lightly and personally joined in the work of arranging the books. Master's most precious books are on the shelf. You must be careful when cleaning. Master said that knowledge is the most precious wealth. After teaching the young servants a few words, he also tidied up the books on the shelf. Then he pushed open the balcony door of the study and came to the snow-covered balcony, from which he could see Needle Grass Hill behind the castle. He looked at the hillside, and the familiar huge body had disappeared, which made him feel very lost. Master has ridden the grey-mouthed iron dragon Orn to Flame Island, and the elves have been sent to Firewood Castle. Now Black Horse Island and Thorn Castle have become very quiet. What he once hoped for the most was to become the butler of Thorn Castle. Now that his wish was fulfilled, he was not as proud as he imagined. Because the butler of Thorn Castle was now only in charge of a few servants. The servants he was familiar with, Butler Carter, Mrs. Morrison, Mrs. Abby, the sexy little Lily, Irene who liked the kitchen, the stupid Tom, and the silly Jessie, all went to Firewood Castle and continued to follow his master. As for him, he, the former master's valet, was left behind in Thorn Castle. However, Thomas did not have much jealousy in his heart, because he had not been liked by List from the beginning. The young master did not like to be served by a manservant. Moreover, as List spent more time away from home than in the castle, his position as a valet only existed in name. Now that he had become the butler of Bramble Castle, he was more than satisfied. As a serving man, his greatest goal in life was to become a butler. As long as old Carter did not die, he would not be able to covet the position of chief butler of Firewood Castle and even the future royal palace. It's snowing again, and the new year is almost here. I wonder how Master is going to celebrate the new year in Firewood Castle. He shook his head and returned to the study. He closed the door carefully and continued to inspect the next room with the key in his hand. Compared to the desolate Thorn Castle, Firewood Castle was bustling. The servants were busy, and the elves were playing and quarreling in the castle. In the past few days, the noise had reached its peak. There was no other reason. The thorn plantation had been built near Firewood City. Ella and her worm stalks had been moved here and lived in Firewood Castle. At this moment, Ella had her hands on her waist and pointed at a naughty elf. "Wow, you bastard elf, you dare to throw jade powder? You're asking for a beating. Calabash elf, don't be afraid of it. If it dares to hit you, I will hit it." The one who spoke was the man-eating tree dragon elf, Carly. She was wearing a flack and holding a knife and fork as she tasted a fruit salad. "Ella, you can teach the Calabash elf a lesson. I support you." Sitting at the same table with Carly was the buckwheat elf, Yachty, who had the intention to provoke a fight between Ella and Carly. Because of Ella's bad temper, she did not like this elf very much. As for Carly, she did not like the elf at all. Ella turned the muzzle and yelled at the two dragon elves, "Shut up. I'm educating the elf, it's none of your business." "Wow. Hee hee." Carly sneered. "Hee hee." Yachty smiled gently. "List, they're quarreling again." A big elf with a strange flower on his head quietly climbed to the shoulder of List, who was reading a book, and told him. List put down the book in his hand and smiled at the big elf. "I know, Carl." Carl, the giant konjac elf, was one of the elves List, who was familiar with the Bird King's ability. When he passed by the Holy Tribe on his way back, the Holy Tribe's listener Sue offered him a gift. With the help of the knight and magician sent by List, Sue subdued many Moonslayer tribes in one fell swoop and collected many elves. The only big sprite was the giant konjac big sprite that he named Carl. Giant konjac was a plant unique to Flame Island. It was known as corpse flower by the Moonslayer. List disliked corpse flower and forcibly changed it to giant konjac. In fact, he also wanted to change the name of the cannibal tree, but Carly liked the name cannibal tree and was unwilling to change it. There were magic ingredients in the giant konjac, so Carl was very valuable. It had an interesting personality and liked to snitch. Of course, from another perspective, it was called loyalty. Therefore, List liked Carl very much. He always felt that Carl was also an unusual elf. Basically, he liked elves with strange personalities and felt that they were full of vitality. Those with dull personalities always felt that they were not energetic enough. But in the Guild of Magic's research, there was no clear link between personality and the evolution of elves. "Aren't you going to stop them?" Carl asked curiously. "It's okay. They're still in the breaking stage. I believe they will like each other soon." "I don't think so." While they were chatting, the butler Carter knocked on the door and came in. "Master, the Marquis is back." "Oh, I'll go over and have a chat with Father." List gestured for Carl to play at the side. He walked over and knocked on Carly and Yachty's table. "Don't fan the flames, you two. Be united. Don't worry, List. With me around, there won't be any chaos," Carly said with her head held high. Yachty pursed her lips and did not say a word. When they came to the living room, Marquis Oxdale had just changed into his home clothes. The father and son talked about government affairs in the living room. The main thing was that List was more concerned about the territory's college entrance examination that had just ended. Marquis Oxdale took out a document. Just summarized the data. The schools in every town have completed the assessment. This is the list of outstanding students recommended by each school. List took it and casually flipped through a few pages. He did not see too many outstanding young students. He had each school specifically indicate the age and training time of the students. Any student who could become an Earth Knight within 3 years was a genius worth nurturing. I don't see a single talented student. There are still quite a few. Look at the schools in Fireforge City. There are already 14-year-old Earth Knights, and there's more than one. These 2 students are definitely geniuses. Li William took out a list and pointed at a student named Duroden Red Apricot and a student named Custer Fengche. Still not talented enough. I have an impression of these 2 students. Duroden is Earl Duroden's son, while Custer is Viscount Delier's son. Duroden Red Apricot was a veteran sword saint, Earl. Delier Fengche was a Sky Knight, Viscount. Their sons had been nurtured from a young age. They advanced to an Earth Knight at the age of 14. Their talent was similar to List's brothers, Levis and Lytton. There was hope for a Sky Knight, but it was nearly impossible for a Dragon Knight. They're already outstanding enough, List. You can't expect everyone to be as talented as you and Emily, Li Williams said, speechless. Even Yevich, who was selected for the Eagle Kingdom's Dragon Knight candidate program, was only a 13-year-old Earth Knight. Then I'll leave the arrangements for them to you, Father. Quickly establish the royal school and nurture them. When there are seedlings for the Dragon Knight candidate program, I'll pay attention to them. To List, only the Dragon Knight was worthy of his attention. He could nurture them into the foundation of the Fire Kingdom. Sky Knights were just a bunch of higher-level production materials. However, with the arrival of this List, the smoke mission was completed. Mission completed. Reward, Black Ring. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.